Hey truckers, today we're seeing part 7 of Supremacy games. Let's dive into the video. In front of a humongous medieval castle that was completely built by white bricks, Felix stepped out of his car and walked toward the castle's metallic gate. He clicked on a key and the car immediately went to park itself automatically in the parking lot. "Sir, can you please show me your invitation?" Unworried, Felix projected his referral letter to the front desk clerk, who was standing outside of the castle. The clerk scanned the letter by his bracelet to see if it was forged or not. A few seconds later, he bowed his head to Felix and welcomed him in a respectful manner. "Sir Felix, your attendance delighted our distinguished establishment." He stood up straight and showed him the way to the hall with his hand, where the other guests were currently socializing before the auction official start. "Thank you." Felix smiled in appreciation and entered inside the Beethoven auction building, which was owned by one of the best auctions companies in the empire. It was responsible for thousands of auction branches spread widely in each kingdom, whether in real life or in the VR. Felix managed to enter one of their auctions in his previous life due to receiving Guadi's referral letter, and what he saw inside utterly blew his mind. From famous celebrities, high-ranked SG players in the empire, to powerful authoritative personals. Felix at that point was merely an average individual who lucked out on an opportunity to mingle with those characters. That resulted in being an outcast in each gathering, whether in the hall before the auction began, or the banquet after it ends. No one bothered to give him a single minute to converse with him. Thus, he could only leave before the auction banquet after he couldn't handle being shunned at the corner of the banquet akin to an abandoned dog. There was no point in staying in an outclassed party. However, this time things were going in a completely different direction, as the moment Felix stepped inside the noisy hall, wearing a formal ash-gray suit, polished black leather shoes, and a white tight-fit shirt with a black tie, he managed to capture the interest of the majority inside. The reason they even turned was not only due to his clothing, but mostly due to his dreadful violet serpent-like eyes, plus his overbearing aura he kept emitting. An aura that only those at the top or confident to reach the top had. Those famous individuals could easily spot a goat inside a sheep herd from a mile away. That's why Felix's emergence caught their interest, especially when no one saw him before in any gathering. "Who is that handsome man? I never saw him before. But he can't be nobody, right? He is either disguising his face, or he is from another empire. Stop jesting. How can someone attend this VIP auction house meeting while hiding his face? True, I believe he is from another empire, or a high-ranked SG player who is using a different persona inside the platform. That's more logical. This must be then his real face." Felix ignored their murmurs and loud gossips, and simply carried on moving indifferently to an empty seat on the bar. The reason he used some of his real features instead of the random disguise was to throw them off from realizing that he arrived here using a referral letter and not earned an invitation by himself. It was easily noticeable if someone was using a disguise or his real face, just from the way he carried himself. And Felix's overbearing aura screamed of confidence and pride. Unknown losers would never be able to have that confidence, especially if they entered this den that was full of famous and powerful individuals. Felix in his previous life got instantly recognized as a lucky individual who chanced upon a referral letter, just from his constant nervousness when he approached them. That led him to being shunned throughout the entire evening. Felix didn't want the same to happen. He knew that this was an opportunity to make some connections with those individuals. It didn't matter if he made friends with celebrities or even just high-ranked players. Every one of them could benefit him one way or another. So he must elude them somehow to believe that he was as famous as them to facilitate their upcoming conversations. Since they assumed that he was a high-ranked player using his real face, then he must carry on the lie and get as many benefits as possible from it. I am quite intrigued by his SG persona. I might even have contested against him before. said a striking blue-haired man with snowy white eyebrows and beard while eyeing Felix ordering a drink at the bar. "How about we go ask him together, Aaron?" A croaky response came from a well-toned man wearing a flamboyant red suit, who was sitting on the same table as the blue-haired man. "No, I would rather not humiliate myself. I bet he will 100% reject us. So you go ahead." Aaron waved his hand dismissively. "Forget it then, better go try my chance with Miss Molly." "Lion, you never give up, do you? Aren't you afraid she will report you to enforcers for harassment?" Aaron chuckled. "I wish. At least then I will receive a response for her," Lion said in a joking manner. However, he wasn't joking about going to Miss Molly in the slightest. As he stood up from his seat while fixing his suit's sleeves. Then, he took a deep breath and advanced in direction of 3 drop-dead gorgeous ladies, each wearing a different glamorous dress that kept men stealing glances at them from time to time. Lion focused only on the lady in the middle that was laughing sweetly while having a curly purple lock of her exquisite hair coiled around her finger. However, her laugh suddenly paused after noticing Lion approaching her. She frowned her eyebrows in irritation over the upcoming harassment. "Stella, Natalie, quickly find a way for me to get rid of this nuisance," she requested softly while pulling them away from Lion to buy time to think for a way out. The ladies turned around and figured out what she meant after seeing Lion as well. Stella immediately said coldly, "Why don't you just report him for harassment? The bastard doesn't want to take a cue by himself and leave you alone after your constant rejections." She continued talking out loud so those near her and especially Lion to hear everything, "So just report him, no one will blame you when he gets his account blocked." The ongoing chatter of those around them instantly quietened down after realizing that a juicy drama was about to unfold in front of them. Immediately after hearing what Stella said and seeing the people's sudden silence, Lion paused his footsteps, not having the guts to continue forward. He simply narrowed his eyes at Stella, who had her lips curled up in disgust. She didn't even try to hide it. Felix took a small sip from his drink while watching with amuse.e.m.e.nt, lucky, getting free entertainment before the auction starts. Why doesn't this be *tch mind her business? Lion glanced hatefully at Stella, who was pulling a hairlock behind her ear using a middle finger pointing at him. He switched his vision to others, who were looking at him with clear anticipation in their eyes, waiting to see him getting humiliated in public. TSK should not have made a move when those 2B*cheese were with her. He changed his direction and headed left, ignoring the disappointed sighs of those around him. He was not a fool to make himself a joke before the auction starts. So, it was better to advance on Molly later when she was alone. He went towards a clerk and asked him out loud where the bathroom was. The clerk gave him the directions politely. "Thank you, I was planning to ask an acquaintance about it." He smiled politely towards the clerk and added out loud while heading towards the bathroom, "But it seems that her beauty got into her head, thinking that all men are here to hit on her." Everyone chuckled lightly at this pathetic shot of saving face. However, they understood that if he didn't try to make an excuse to get him out of the hole that Stella put him in, he would get belittled even further. After all, to back away from just one sentence would put a quite large dent in his charisma. God knows those snobs would rather die before embarrassing themselves in front of their peers. Molly sighed in relief after seeing his back disappear at the corner. She hugged Stella and kissed her on the cheek, leaving a hazy purple lip mark. I told you not to kiss me with your purple lipstick. You always leave a mark, ruining my makeup." Stella pushed her away and took a small mirror from her bracelet. She sulked instantly after seeing the mark on her cheek. Molly and Natalia giggled sweetly and put their fingers in their mouths under the gazes of men in the hall. Then, they rubbed them on Stella's cheek, trying to remove the mark. Sadly, they just made it worse as it got spread even further. Full 0W current novels on n/o/v/3l/b in .co/m. Stella looked at her purple cheek speechlessly. Is this my reward for doing a good deed? Without waiting for those around them to laugh at her, she snapped her finger and her cheek was returned to its previous state. If it was not for this, Molly and Natalia would not have played with her like this. Friendship would break between females if this happened in real life. Satisfied with her looks, she closed the mirror and put it back in the bracelet. She then eyed her pranksters with a spiteful gaze. You asked for it. She grinned and looked around her, evaluating every man in the hall to see who would be fit for her payback prank. Too old. Married. Arrogant. Womanizer piece of shit. Gay, no fun to play with. She kept commenting softly each time her eyes landed on a man. The two girls felt nervous every time they hear her murmur. What is she planning to do with us? Natalia whispered to Molly while eyeing Stella worriedly. I don't know. Molly sighed, but we won't like the results. She is always heavy-handed with her pranks. It's you, Stella said, smiling. Their whispering stopped after seeing Stella walking towards an unknown man, sitting at the bar counter, drinking small sips of bluish drink while reading in concentration something on his holographic screen. Is she planning to hang with that man and ditch us as punishment? Natalia wondered while tilting her head slightly. Molly coiled a strand in her finger again and answered with an uncertain tone, probably not. She won't take it that far. A few minutes later, her eyes suddenly brightened up after seeing Stella returning to them with a smile. See, told you so, Molly said. Still confused, Natalia nodded her head. Beauties follow me. Stella took their hands and pulled them with her towards the bar. What are you doing, Stella? Molly asked nervously. I set us all a date with that handsome. She grinned at their dismayed expressions and said, we will sit all in one room during the auction house. But the auction rooms only have 3 chairs. Natalia said. Exactly. Stella eyed them playfully and added, one of you girls will have to either share a chair between you two or with him. She teased them, maybe, I will even sit on his thigh and let you beauties sit on each chair. What the hell, Stella? That's too far. Molly complained while trying to break away from Stella's grip. Sadly, she had to stop her attempts after reaching the man's side. Sigh, whatever, being with a stranger might even keep that horny dog away from me. She sighed, accepting her fate. She lifted her head to see who did Stella set them up with, and suddenly felt that it was not so bad after seeing Felix's easygoing smile. Ladies, nice to meet you. Felix nodded his head politely and introduced himself. I am Felix, please have a seat. Drinks are on their way. Natalia and Molly introduced themselves politely as they seated next to him. Honestly, they didn't even need to introduce themselves, as Felix already knew about their identity. I am a big fan of both of your works. Felix complimented them sincerely. To actually drink with Miss Molly, the current queen of dramas, and Miss Natalia, lead singer of Tigers of Love Idol band, is truly a lucky day for me. Hey! Not fair. Stella jumped in front of him and pointed at herself. What about me? Don't you love watching my movies? Felix shook his head gently and said, Miss Stella, how can you say that? I have repeatedly watched your movies. He approached her ear and whispered, especially, Sinful Purity movie. You're bad, how can you say that to my face? She laughed and pushed him away. Felix didn't feel ashamed at all, bragging about watching repeatedly the only movie she had a nude scene in. Molly and Natalia tilted their heads in confusion at their flirting. What the hell, isn't this too quick? They just met. Molly thought. Did Sister Stella brought us to watch them flirt with each other? Natalia thought. They shared eye contact for a quick second and nodded in understanding. Game on! Let's see who will watch who. All west ch.rs on n.o/vli/n/.cm. Natalia abruptly hugged Felix's left arm and asked shyly with sparkling sapphire azure eyes, "Brother Felix, which one of my songs do you love the most?" A bit baffled, Felix gave a side glance at her weird behavior. But still, he answered her after contemplating for a while. "It's quite hard to choose. However, my favorites are On Your Knees, Imaginary Road." He smiled and complimented her, "especially Imaginary Road video clip, your beauty truly shone in it." Natalia didn't answer him back, as she lowered her head, avoiding eye contact with him. Her attempt to flirt backfired at her immediately. Molly laughed softly at her friend's reaction. She knew that Natalia gets awkward instantly after being praised by males. "Hee, Sister Natalia, I always told you the same, but you never believed me." Stella smiled teasingly and said, "Now that you hear it from Felix, you didn't refuse. Tell why so." Natalia's ears turned red in embarrassment. She didn't think Stella would go that far and twist facts like this, trying to make it sound like she had a thing for Felix. "Since you are playing dirty, let's see how you react when I do the same." Natalia ignored Stella's playful smile and courageously whispered in Felix's ear while covering it with her small hands. Stella nervously watched Felix's expression turn weird while looking at her body. F***ck. Don't tell me she told him about that. Stella flinched at his invasive sight. She felt that every inch of her body was N.A.K.E.D in his eyes, especially when she wore nothing underneath her dress. "Cough, be right back, I need to head to the bathroom." She stood up hurriedly and walked faster away from them. Yet she felt her cheeks burn after feeling 3 piercing gazes at her rear. She gritted her teeth and increased her speed even faster until she disappeared in the corner. Pfffffff. That what you'd get after dressing that way. Natalia and Molly laughed besides Felix, who was honestly quite uncomfortable about knowing such private information. He might have accepted having them in his auction room to not feel bored during the long duration of the bidding, but still, he didn't expect he would be hearing secrets from his stars that he loved to watch and listen to in his previous life. "Oh well, might as well enjoy it," he thought to himself. His thick skin quickly helped him accept the situation. Felix warned her about her next garbage series. Asna's voice suddenly interjected in Felix's mind. "No." With pleasure." Felix's slits thinned dangerously for a split second unnoticed by the ladies before returning to their normal size. "You are such a bastard." Asna cursed him after reading what he had in mind. "Is it possible to know if your next drama is already in production?" Felix turned his head to Molly as he casually asked. Molly stopped laughing after hearing him talk business. If he asked about the release date of her drama, it meant he wanted to watch it. But if he asked about production, it signified that he planned on investing. "Sir Felix, the production won't begin until next month." She answered seriously. Is he going to ask about investing in the series? Or he is just curious? I see. He nodded lightly and asked an unexpected question to Molly. "How did you find the plot?" "You can answer honestly about your real feeling." He smiled. "No one is going to judge you." Even though Natalia didn't understand what he was implying, she still nodded her head in agreement. Molly stared at his genuine eyes and didn't know what to say. She wanted to express her real views about the script, but she was not a fool to do so in front of a man she just met. So she kept hesitating to speak, not knowing what to do. Felix sighed at this sight and waved his hand dismissively. "Forget it, I apologize for putting you in such a difficult position. He paused, however, just from your hesitation the answer is pretty clear. He lifted his glass of bluish wine and advised her with a solemn expression, trust in your gut feeling towards the script. It's still not too late. After that, he ignored her completely and kept flirting with Natalia playfully, teasing her here and there, making her blush constantly. He didn't bother explaining what he meant to Molly. He already gave her a free future brownie, due to Asna telling him to warn her of that shithole she was about to fall in. If it was not for Asna, he wouldn't have bothered to say anything. He wanted to keep the timeline exactly the same as the last one for as long as possible. This action would cause quite an impact on the film industry if Molly listened to his advice. As the upcoming series she was about to cast in failed horribly due to another series grabbing the attention of every spectator. If it was not for it, the series would have performed as expected, average results, but stable income. However, because of this variable, Molly's series got bashed to the ground after it was being compared constantly between the two. Especially when the episode's release was close to each other. The difference got even more apparent to the audience. This constant bashing resulted in the series being dropped by the producers. No one got hit harder than the actors, specifically Molly, who was a famous celebrity within the empire. Felix planned to invest in that series. That's why Asna wanted him to enlighten Molly, as she didn't want the series he was about to invest in to crush Molly, who acted in 5 of her favorite drama series. However, Felix had something different in mind. Why are you spacing out? Stella immediately asked Molly after returning from the bathroom. She sat next to her and waited for her response. Felix told me to follow my gut feeling when dealing with my upcoming series. Absent-minded, Molly coiled a curly strand on her finger as she replied. Did he now? Surprised, Stella glanced at Felix, who was drinking with Natalia. She then patted her friend's shoulder and asked, well, what was your first thought after reading the script? Molly looked at her tearfully and responded, trash. Stella didn't know whether to laugh or cry at her truthful response. Her company will skin her alive if they caught wind of what she said in public. Well, then just don't do it, baby. Stella hugged her with a smile and advised, you are Miss Molly. Do you think you will struggle to find another series to act in? I doubt it. So if you feel that you are not fit for the series. She poked Molly's nose with her finger and said, just ask your company to terminate your contract with it. But they will refuse to pay the termination fees. Molly slapped Stella's finger away and added, even more so based on a hunch of mine. If I paid the fees, would you sign a contract with me to act in an upcoming series I am planning to invest in? Felix put his head between their hug while tempting Molly with a soft devilish voice. Ah. Ah. Both Molly and Stella yelped in surprise after getting interrupted abruptly by Felix's voice. Felix didn't wait for them to bash him for his gutsy move, as he quickly explained what he meant, I am willing to pay your termination fees. However, you must take the female lead role in an upcoming series I plan to invest in. Vexed, Stella's eyelids kept twitching, as she looked at Felix's serious expression like his head was not between their chests. Felix saw her staring at him, so he offered her his famous easygoing smile. This bastard, at least show some reaction when being embraced by two beauties. Stella didn't let him get comfortable too much as Molly seemed like she went absent-minded again after hearing his offer. So she grabbed his head that was lying comfortably between their chests and pulled him out. Tisk. Felix clicked his tongue and returned to his seat. It truly felt good lying in his favorite star's embrace. Only a few get such an opportunity, and he would be a fool to miss it. After reseating himself, he ordered another glass while sizing up Stella with a playful gaze. Her eyelashes quivered as she blinked nervously at the way he was looking at her. It seems like you fixed that issue at the bathroom. He suddenly said. PFFF. Don't bully her, brother Felix. We still have a long evening together. Natalia giggled at Stella's embarrassed look. Stella only lowered her head without sounding a retort. She knew that whatever she said would not uplift the current situation to her advantage. Thus, she could only grit her teeth and continue listening to their teasing. You little daredevil, I will show you hell inside the auction room. Just you wait. Stella narrowed her eyes at Natalia's cheerfulness. Natalia didn't have a single clue that her teasing had led her to an upcoming downfall. She merely kept laughing with Felix, not knowing that she provoked a vixen. Mr. Felix. Felix turned his head and focused on Molly, who called for him. She finally broke from her daze. Your offer has intrigued my interest. However, before I make a decision, I need to hear the details of the series you plan to invest in. She paused and eyed him strangely. Plus, the reason why do you need to go that far for me? It's simple actually. Felix smiled gently. I am a fan of your works, and I want you to act only in the best series there are. He said confidently, this series that I plan to cast you in is one of them. I will tell you about its details inside the room. He glanced at his bracelet and informed her, the auction is about to begin. A bit bashful, Molly played with her hair after hearing his reason. She didn't know if he was saying the truth or just lying to get in her good books. But him paying the contract termination fees wouldn't change. That's what moved her a bit. His willingness to pay 60 million SC to get her out of that shithole her company made her sign. Even though, he said that she must act in his series as a condition. In her eyes, that was merely a term to not make her feel indebted to him. She believed that the series he chose would not perform as bad as the one she was currently cast in. After all, he could have simply invested in her series and not waste millions to pay the fee if he wasn't confident that his series would perform better. So, she already decided that she would accept his offer. Her unwillingness to say so was simply to not appear too desperate. Felix knew this as well. That's why he was relaxed about this cooperation. Not pushing or forcing her to sign as fast as possible. Dear esteemed guests. A sudden sweet voice resounded in the hall, stopping everyone's chatter, including Felix's. Those who were sitting stood up and fixed their attire. They knew what's about to be said already. Please click the room number on your bracelet, so you can get teleported inside. She paused for a second and continued speaking in a gentle manner. If you want other guests to enter your room, simply send an invitation to their UVR ID. Keep in mind there are only 3 seats in one room. In addition, only 5 guests can be invited. For further details about the auction rules, please ask the Queen AI. Thank you and good luck on your bidding. She ended the transmission as sudden as she activated it. The regular bidders didn't even wait for her to finish, as they teleported inside their rooms the moment she greeted them. This left the crowded hall empty with only a few guests here, and they're still conversing or waiting. Such as Aaron, who was still waiting for Lion to return from the bathroom. Sigh, that bastard truly hid in there until everyone left. He rubbed his snow-white eyebrows in irritation while watching the bidders around him teleport one by one. Soon, his eyes landed on Felix and the ladies, who were about to depart as well. I wonder how he will react when he sees his love interest getting mushy with that unknown player. He said, chuckling. Speak of the devil. He turned his head to the left and saw Lion standing still, staring at the girls, who just humiliated him in front of others, touch Felix's bracelet one by one. Lion knew that Felix had just received their personal UVR ID. He was chasing after Molly for over 2 months now, and he still didn't receive even a friendly smile, don't even mention her UVR ID. Too bad, that wasn't even the deadliest blow to his self-esteem, but what followed next. Felix and the girls all disappearing at the same time. Impossible. Giving him their ID is one thing, but King getting in his room is another. He couldn't comprehend how and why did they even decide to enter his room. It didn't make sense at all. He tried everything to get Molly's ID number, but he never succeeded. But here he was seeing his love interest, who was always giving hard time, easily get inside another's man room after meeting for only a couple of minutes. F.U.C.K.I.N.GSL*T, I believe that you treated every guy as shitty as me. But it turns out it was only me. His expression twisted from rage and humiliation. He already foresaw Aaron, roasting him throughout the entire evening about this. He took deep breaths through his nose, trying to regain his calm while approaching Aaron. However, that wasn't easy, as the closer he got, the easier he was able to see Aaron's mocking expression. At this point, Lion wanted nothing more but to ruin Aaron's pretty face. Alas, this was the UVR. King UVR rules. I can neither beat people nor pick up girls without being labeled as harassment. He huffed in anger and teleported immediately after reaching Aaron's side, not giving him a single chance to open his mouth. Stupid, aren't we entering the same room? Aaron laughed and sent an invitation to Lion. Sorry you have been blocked by this user for 24 hours, whoosh. A cold breeze caressed his face as he stood silently all alone in the empty hall, not knowing what to do anymore. After all, he only attended this auction to accompany Lion. Inside a cozy well-lighted room that had 3 red armchairs stationed near each other, light particles started to gather, forming 4 human bodies. A moment later, the process of teleportation finished. Felix and the ladies stood silently while eyeing the 3 chairs, facing a large screen that was showing the details of all the items that were going to be auctioned tonight. Obviously, except the last remaining 3 items, which had 3 questing marks on them. I am sitting in the middle one. Indifferent, Felix went and sat on that chair, leaving the other 2 for the beauties to contest for. He never had the idea of acting as a gentleman and giving them his seat while he remained standing. He came here to bid for items, not to please girls. He only accepted their offer of staying with him was simply to ease the boredom of bidding alone. However, if his comfort was going to be compromised, he wouldn't have accepted them at all. Stella already knew this, as Felix told her exactly so to her face when she approached him. So, she was not mad or disdainful about his manners. She just smiled with a playful glint and said, Molly, you sit on his right, me and Natalia are going to share one. Molly did as told, as she really didn't want to sit on anyone's lap under Felix's eyes. That's too embarrassing for her. On the other hand, Natalia pouted in irritation and sat on Stella's lap. She knew that by being the lightest of the 3, she wouldn't be able to escape the fate of sitting on someone's lap during the auction. Are you feeling conformable? Or do you prefer sitting on Felix's thighs? Stella whispered softly in Natalia's ears, tickling her earlobes. She began her revenge plan immediately. Annoyed, Natalia rubbed her ear without answering. She was thoroughly ignoring her teasing. Stella smiled and said nothing more, as the auction had begun. Ladies and gentlemen, I assume that all of you had read the auction rules before entering, correct? The Queen's monotonous voice resounded in the massive auditorium that had neither stage nor open seats. The entire auditorium resembled a closed-off cylinder that had on its walls large glass windows tiered near each other. There were hundreds of those windows on the walls, stretching to the sky. Each window represented a bidder's room. Felix was currently sitting in room number 44 right in the middle of the packed windows. I will not explain the rules as they will take too long. So, for the newcomers who didn't read them or ask me properly, it's better if you just watch the first bids and act the same. Surprisingly, Queen AI was the one going to auction the items. But at the same time, it wasn't really that surprising. After all, the Queen was the only entity who was trusted wholeheartedly by the masses. Heck, the majority trusted her more than they trust their own parents, and for a good reason. She was the only autonomous authoritative entity that bows to no one. Not even her race. This meant she was unbiased in all of the judgments and ruling. In this kind of activity, she was always requested to lead and act as the host. No one would complain in her presence about the prices of the items auctioned or would doubt the legitimacy of them. Even if there was a problem with an item, she would make sure that it was clearly highlighted in her presentation. Let's begin. Without further ado, she displayed the first item in the air, rotating it silently. The item was a bottle filled with a grayish liquid substance. It was put right in the middle of the auditorium. No one could miss it. This is an epic rank tier 6 spectrum butterfly bloodline. The starting bid is 500 million SC. She followed with, its full details are on your screens. You have 2 minutes to read them properly before we begin bidding. This was one of the rules of the auction. The Queen merely displays the item and leave them to read its details. From the advantages to disadvantages of the bloodline without promoting it with fake information. Her way of auctioning was completely different from other human auctioneers. She neither spoke more than necessary nor tried to hype the auction with yells, making it resemble a noisy market. She simply played soothing music and left them to read the details of their bid in concentration. 2 minutes later exactly, she informed them to begin bidding. 520 million SC from room 12. 530 million SC from room 37. 570 million SC from room 140. She kept calling the bids clearly, even though not a single person spoke or raised a number panel. 660 million SC from room 3. 660 million SC from room 3 going once, twice, sold. Bam! The virtual gavel sound echoed in the auction auditorium. Immediately after, polite claps followed. Felix and the girls clapped politely as well. However, Natalia was having difficulty doing so, as her neck was being licked by Stella. Stop it! Felix is going to notice. Natalia begged softly with red ears. But Stella didn't even pause. She kept kissing her back neck and licking it playfully. Sigh, I wish I could trade necks right now. Envious, Felix kept peeking at Natalia, who was being eaten. She assumed that Felix didn't see them playing, but how could they escape his eyes? She was as red as a tomato. Even Molly noticed something weird going on between those two. However, she was too embarrassed to scold them. Org. Suddenly, a soft M.O.A.N escaped from Natalia's lips. She clasped her mouth tightly while looking at Felix and Molly, giving her awkward glances. Ha ha ha. Tears threatened to drop after seeing their looks. Stella removed her fingers from Natalia's chest while laughing in a delightful manner. Her revenge had been achieved. Natalia, come sit on my lap. Molly offered gently after not being able to handle seeing Natalia watery eyes. Sniff, sniff. Natalia went to her while sniffing softly. She sat on Molly's lap and buried her head on Molly's shoulder, not daring to look at Felix anymore. Molly squinted her eyes at Stella, giving her a menacing look. Stella shrugged her shoulders carelessly and blew a kiss back at her. TSK, Felix, you really invited a fox in your room this time. Asna clicked her tongue mockingly after seeing him sweat from his forehead at those beauties' interactions. They were truly testing his patience. Heh, are you taking one of them home tonight or all? She teased him, knowing that he couldn't do so. F***CK. Leave me alone. You are the last thing I need right now. Felix shooed her away while wiping his sweat discreetly. Only now did he know that meeting his stars was not always a good thing. Their pure and angelic image instantly shattered after hearing Natalia's MOAN. Fortunately, they behaved properly after splitting them apart from Stella, leaving him to focus on the latest auctioned item that the Queen had just displayed. This is a leaf of a dawn tree. The starting bid is 280 million SC. A square-shaped milky white leaf was rotating slowly for everyone to see. Felix's eyes shone with delight after seeing it. Didn't think they would put it so soon. He quickly controlled the screen in front of him to show him the leaf details. He didn't have time to read the details of the items properly before. Soon, the milky white leaf was displayed with its details in front of him and the ladies. / name, Dawn Tree Leaf. Starting bid, 280 million SC. History: the Dawn Tree is one of the few remaining light elemental spirit trees in the universe after the spirit's mass extinction during the Dark Ages. It grows one leaf for each year until it reaches 100 leaves in a century. Afterward, it drops one leaf for each year until a century passes again. This cycle keeps repeating for eternity. Uses: firstly, it can heal an individual of any illness, disease, curses, poison, condition, and more. Secondly, it can be used to resist incoming curses by having it in a 1-meter diameter around the owner. Thirdly, it can be used as material to create potions, substances, artifacts, talismans, weapons, and more. Such as the elemental potion or curse resistance talisman. Drawbacks: firstly, it must be kept in a cold environment 24/7. Otherwise, it will lose its properties gradually until it becomes null. Secondly, it can only survive for 1 year before it turns to ash. //. The beauties didn't bother Felix after seeing him concentrating on the leaf's details. They figured out that he was interested in obtaining it. So, they behaved themselves and let him focus on the upcoming bidding struggle. As always, the Queen informed them to begin bidding immediately after 2 minutes passed. Felix decided to test the water first and bid low. Queen, 290 million SC please. He didn't click anything. He merely called his bid softly. 290 million SC from room 44. Simultaneously, the Queen called his bid out loud for others. A few moments later, the bid increased by 30 million. 320 million SC from room 1. Tisk. Felix clicked his tongue and stopped bidding, for now, wanting to see how far the price would reach. 360 million. 390 million. 480 million. 485 million from room 1. The bids carried on until they surpassed 500 million. But they still didn't stop coming. Though, not as fast as earlier. Felix decided to act now as he increased the bid by 20 million at once, hoping that it might turn off room 1 owner's eagerness. Sadly, it backfired on Felix, as that person increased the price again by a whopping 50 million. He clearly was showing his desperation for the item, telling Felix he would not leave without it. This was the only way they could communicate their feelings inside the auction, as speaking or knowing the bidder's name inside a room was forbidden. Do you want to bid? Simply call it in your room and the Queen will handle the rest. This rule was added to stop those who try to increase the bid simply to spite their enemies. In addition, to those who beg other bidders to not contest with them to save their face water. However, the true aim of this rule was to stop those bidders who threaten their competitors publicly to drop their bid or face the consequences of offending their backgrounds. This childish method of bidding was completely uprooted by the Queen after it received multiple complaints from the abused bidders about it. Now, you either bid silently or go play in the corner and let those with coins do so peacefully. Those rules were accepted by all auctions, as they were quite beneficial to their business. Even though hyping prices was not allowed anymore, still, those who lowered the prices further using their background were even more plentiful than them. Hence, the only ones who were but heard about those new changes were the bullies. That's why Felix never cared about who was in room 1. He could be the governor of the empire capital city and he still wouldn't give a shit about it. So, he kept counterbidding each time nonchalantly. The beauties with him held their breath at the staggering amount of the current bid. 510 million from room 1. 540 million from room 44. 545 million from room 1. 600 million from room 44. SSSSS. Awestruck, Natalia drew a deep breath after hearing Felix call 600 million indifferently. An amount she could never reach even if she combined all of her album sales since her debut. Molly and Stella didn't react as excessive as her, but their eyes still widened from such a large amount. After all, they were simply invited in the auction as eye candy during the hall and the after banquet, not as true bidders. If they had such a large capital in the first place to bid here, they wouldn't even need Felix to pay such a petty termination fees. This was the difference between the commoners' world and the bloodliners. Felix could spend 600 million casually for just one material needed to concoct a potion. But in their eyes, that's an amount they could reach only if they slaved their entire lives. After waiting for a while, the person from room 1 didn't increase anymore. 600 million SC from room 44, going once, twice, sold. Bam! The queen struck the gavel faithfully without delaying for even a second to buy time for Felix's contender to consider. The beauties clapped their hands cheerfully after Felix emerged victoriously. He accepted their claps with a harmless smile. Meanwhile, he was cursing the mother of the person in room 1 for being such a desperate f***ck. Piece of shit, 200 million increase on one material. When did I offend you to treat me like this? Felix could only whine in his mind after losing 200 million, due to being unlucky in meeting a desperate soul like him. After all, the known market price of the Dawntree leaf was only 400 million. However, there was no supply at all to the public. Those resources were being traded between the upper echelons of the empire discreetly. And if some of those materials manage to bypass their clutches, they get sold in those kinds of auctions. Ones that Felix didn't even have the reputation necessary to join. So, he could only bite the bullet and spend that amount on the leaf, lest he regrets later and ends up not finding it. Find EU chapters on nv/lbi.com. Coins could be earned back just as fast by using his memories. But those treasures could only be obtained from the high ranks SG prize pool or by joining the upper class of the empire. This meant reaching a high rank in SG was a must in order to obtain the rest of the materials. However, to reach high ranks in the SG, Felix needed to have enough strength backing him up. The only way to increase it was by getting the elemental potion and making a breakthrough into the replacement realm. In other words, he needed to find a third option to get those materials as fast as possible. Felix already had in mind a way to do so. However, it depended on his luck in the second game. Sir Felix, the serial code of the Dawntree leaf has been sent to you successfully. Instead of feeling excited at the news, Felix just sighed while glancing at his bank account that had only 700 million left after 600 million was deducted by the Queen. Whatever, I can earn more during my investment. Speaking about that. Felix turned his head and asked Molly, I will not be bidding for the next couple of hours. Do you want to hear the details of the series now? Yes, please. She nodded her head with a charming smile and said, I was planning to ask you after the auction to not bother you. Felix waved his hand casually and replied, Don't worry about it, I already secured the item I needed. His lax expression turned serious and continued, "Before I share with you the summary of the drama plot, you need to sign an NDA contract, if that's all right with you?" "Of course, we don't mind." Molly spoke for them all and agreed to sign. Felix didn't waste time and sent them 3 holographic contracts. Even though Felix was doing all of this without even meeting the production company, he was not worried a bit that they would refuse his investment. Especially now that he had Molly, the drama queen, on his side. If before his chances to get a slice of that series cake was only 40%, now with Molly he could confidently say it's 99%. He knew that the production company would not refuse him when they see that he brought Molly to them. The perfect candidate for the lead role. The only reason they didn't manage to secure her in his previous life was because she already had signed with that garbage series. Thus, they could only use another actress. But now they wouldn't hesitate to replace her with Molly, even if they had to pay the contract termination fees. That's why Felix made them sign an NDA contract. He didn't want them to share information about the series with the public before he tells them so. Or else, he might end up shooting himself in the foot, gaining extra investors' competitors instead of an actress. A few moments later, the girls signed the contract and eyed him with sparkling eyes, waiting to be dazzled by the plot. Felix's eyelids twitched at this sight. He realized that he raised their expectation bar a bit too high. But he was confident that the plot would please them. After all, it was a super hit series in his previous life. I will only brief you on the plot summary and the 2 main characters. He coughed to clear his dry throat and entered his story mode telling. The plot didn't really have too much originality, as the story begins with a shy introvert university student who is invisible to everyone. He neither has friends nor a girlfriend. The only thing he does all day long was study, play games, and gaze from afar at his 5-years-long crush. He pointed at Molly, "That's you." He then carried on with the same pace. So far, the plot is average, nothing unique. However, there is a twist. He smiled mysteriously. The male MC's alter ego that was shaped with every characteristic that the FMC wanted in a man, suddenly replaces the MC shy and introvert persona when he fell in his apartment staircase and hit his head hard. Geht the L Testvels on no/v/elben.c/om. Felix chuckled and continued. He never expected that the alter ego he was building since the moment he fell in love with his crush to replace him. But isn't that a good thing? He will finally have a chance with his crush. Natalia asked while tilting her head in confusion. Felix laughed even harder while shaking his head. No, it's not, because their memories are split. He doesn't know what his alter ego is doing and never will unless his alter ego shares it with him. Molly gasped after seeing the crux of the plot. Doesn't that mean he created his worst rival in love by himself? Bingo! But there is another twist. Felix grinned. The MC and his alter ego decided to split the day, as they got tired of their constant fight for control. So it was decided that 12 hours of daylight will be for the MC, while his alter ego will have 12 hours a night. In other words, each of them has absolutely no idea what they are doing when they get replaced, creating a 12 hours void each day. Felix rubbed his hands excitedly and carried on. This is where the plot thickens. The alter ego began working as a bartender to earn money as well as enjoy himself with single ladies. He didn't have the same feelings for the MC crush, as he was built in the MC's fantasies as a playboy. After all, he was simply fantasizing, a harmless thing to do. He laughed, but who would have thought that this harmless thing would get him into deep shit? Don't tell me, he met with the female MC and slept with her on the basis of a one-night stand. Stella exclaimed out loud. Delighted by her guess, Felix clapped his hands while answering, yes. The worst part. The FMC fell for him, not knowing that he was merely an alter ego to an introvert shy student in her university. Haha, I can already see the poor thing getting harassed by his crush, not knowing as well that his alter ego was causing it. Molly covered her mouth as she laughed. Indeed, but that didn't last for long as the MC finally decided to come clean and explain to her about his alter ego. Ha ha ha. The girls couldn't help but laugh after imagining that weird scene. Felix eyed at them and continued, "That's not even the weirder part. What's weird was that the female MC begged the male MC to help her get into a relationship with his alter ego. And because the MC loves her so much, he couldn't refuse her request, thus creating a messy love triangle." The girls couldn't help but get excited as they imagined how that drama would look like on the screens. They knew that each episode would be filled with laughs, awkward moments, misunderstandings, and emotions. Things every drama fan loved to see. Felix grinned and said the plot ultimatum, the final twist is that the alter ego will try to assist the MC to get him in a relationship with his crush, making the already messy triangle even messier. Molly immediately stood up and said excitedly, "I am sold. Where do I sign?" Felix smiled wryly at her enthusiasm and sat back in his seat. Even though she was excited to sign, he couldn't provide her the contract now. At least, not until he speaks with the production company and convinces them to replace their actress with Molly. This process would take a while, as they would need to negotiate a new contract for him and one for Molly. Those procedures consume too much of his time. Maybe I should hire a manager who deals with those investment ideas of mine, so I can concentrate on my bloodline path and games. He pondered. I will look through it later. He quickly dropped the matter and focused on Molly and Stella, who were quarreling about who would make a better female lead. I am better fit to lead in his series. I acted in multiple drama movies before as well. Stella argued elegantly, not raising her voice or using gestures. She simply said facts. I am called Drama Queen. Molly was even worse, as she only kept repeating this sentence to deny all of Stella's attempts at poaching a good series from her. They might be friends, but when it comes to their interests, they wouldn't hesitate to bite each other's throats. So what? I earned Prestige Movie Award. I am called Drama Queen. I have no issue appearing nude in a scene if it's necessary, unlike you. I am called Drama Queen. If Felix chose me, he wouldn't need to pay your termination fees. I am called Drama Queen. Arg! Stop saying that, we get it already. Stella yelled in irritation and sat back in her seat. She felt like she was arguing with a brick wall. I am called Drama Queen. Oh, are you done already? Molly, who was repeating the same sentence, subconsciously woke up from her absent-mindedness after hearing her yell. Stella, no need to argue any further, I am choosing only Molly. Felix quickly added after seeing her eyes get watery like she had been wronged, don't worry, I have multiple movies I plan to invest in. You would be my first choice as a female lead. Thank you, darling. Stella's watery eyes immediately dried up like a magic trick. A smile bloomed on her lips as she gazed at him. Felix's eyelids twitched at the sight. He turned around to Molly, not wanting to deal with this vixen anymore. Molly, you need to contact your company and inform them about your choice. Then inform me about the termination fees when you do so. He added, as for signing the contract with my series, I will call you when I have everything prepared. Okay? Molly nodded her head in understanding while giving a smug smile at Stella. Felix, you still didn't tell us the name of the series. Natalia interjected in their conversation after seeing that they were done talking business. Oh, its current name is My Love Rival Is Me. He paused for a second and added, don't get attached to it. It can be replaced at any moment. I doubt it, that name is quite befitting for it. Stella shook her head in disagreement. Felix knew so as well, but he still needed to say so, to install a notion in the heads that he was also investing blindly in this series. It might be useless, but he had nothing to lose. Just as Stella wanted to ask him about the movies he planned to invest in, the Queen announced a new item that drew Felix's attention. This is ethereal dust of a dark star fly. The starting bid is 150 million SC. A small bottle filled with a gram or so of dark dust kept revolving in the air. Ladies, if you excuse me for a moment. Felix opened the details of the bottle on his screen and read them in concentration. The beauties didn't yap around and left him to read in peace. Even though it is just 1 gram, I must get it no matter what. The elemental potion needed exactly 5 grams of this substance as a material. However, Felix was still glad by getting 1 gram first, since he believed that he would need to waste a champion wish to obtain those 5 grams. In his eyes, anything that could be bought with money or game points must not have a wish wasted on getting them. After all, winning games was not a walk in a park. So, he placed his bids in an aggressive manner, increasing the bid price by 30 million each time someone took a breath. This way of bidding put quite heavy pressure on his contenders, forcing them to think twice and thrice whether it was worth it to continue bidding with Felix. Before long, the price had reached 290 million SC. Felix didn't pause and added 30 million again. 320 million SC from room 44. The Queen proclaimed in a clear manner, yet no one dared to bid anymore. The price had almost reached double its original. They were not that desperate to obtain it with that kind of price like Felix. Bam! Thus, the virtual gavel sound echoed loudly, marking a successful auctioning. Felix signed in relief at the sound of the gavel. The price might appear too large for others, but for him it was all worth it as long as he didn't leave the auction with an empty bank account. The beauties clapped their hands, congratulating him over his victory. Stella even took a step forward and stood up behind him, planning to massage his stiff shoulders. No need to bother yourself, I am fine. Felix refused her offer politely after seeing her pale hands kneading his shoulders gently. Let me do it, please. Or else I won't feel at ease accepting your movie's offers. Stella requested with a sincere smile while adding more pressure to her massage. I am not ungrateful like someone in this room, who did not even say thank you after helping her. She scoffed and continued focusing on her massage, not giving a glance at Molly, who was fuming after having her integrity insulted like this. Felix closed his eyes and relaxed, not refusing her anymore. He only denied her the first time as a formality. He would be a fool to do so twice. As for what she said after, he didn't care one bit about their squabble. I was planning to invite Mr. Felix for a dinner to show my appreciation. Molly pushed Natalia away from her lap, wanting to stand up. She fixed her dress that was messed up by Natalia and went to Felix's right side. Under Stella's annoyed look, she started massaging Felix's right forearm gently. But a small reward like this is not a problem for me, she said, smiling. Natalia gaped at Stella and Molly massaging Felix, not knowing what to do anymore. She looked at his other forearm. Should I join in as well? I don't want to be left alone. After a few seconds of contemplating, she decided to go for it. She went to Felix's left side and started massaging his other forearm. Anyone in Felix's situation would feel blessed to be treated like this by 3 celebrities, but Felix was only feeling an agonizing pain in his heart over losing almost 1 billion on just 2 materials. The constant thought that he still needed 6 more unique materials to finally complete his gathering made him tremble all over. The girls added more pressure after feeling that he suddenly was tense all over. Ah, whatever, money comes and goes. He closed his eyes in contentment and thought, better enjoy this while it lasts. Felix neither moved nor touched them. Unless he gets their consent, he would remain as docile as a puppy. He just remained sitting calmly while thinking about which manager should he choose. He already decided that it was much better to get a professional manager to handle his business opportunities. From investing, talking to producers, signing contracts, and such, find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience, please click #47750137885100053 for visiting. He had no time to keep running around, taking care of everything all at once. He would rather give up on 3% or 5% in the earnings to a good manager than continue wasting time on his investment plans. And he had many plans. 2 hours later, the auction successfully concluded with a bang, as the last item was sold with a whopping 15 billion SC. Felix didn't even flinch at that price, as he expected nothing less from this auction. He knew that he was merely a small fish within the bidders, just like the majority of them. As for those whales, they were only interested in the last 3 items, leaving the rest to be contested by those beneath them. Felix left the auction a bit satisfied with his earnings, as now he only required 4 more grams of dark star dust, 14 more purity drops, and 6 more unique materials before he contacts a witch to concoct him the elemental potion. After leaving the Beethoven auction house, he drove his car, heading toward the teleportation company. He didn't attend the banquet as it was quite dull and pointless after the authority figures, whom he was planning to hit it off with, didn't attend as well. Even though the girls begged him with puppy eyes to remain with them, since they were forced to stay as eye candy for the bidders. Felix rejected them on the basis that he needed to start taking care of Molly's addition to the series cast. After hearing his reason, they could only give him a quick hug as a farewell and leave him be. 3 hours quickly passed by, as Felix successfully hired a well-known business manager called Mr. Igris from the Holy Sinful City. Felix made him sign an exclusive contract, binding Mr. Igris to only work for him and no one else. Nevertheless, Mr. Igris agreed gleefully after seeing that he would obtain a 4% profit from each business venture Felix asked him to handle. Since Felix showed him that he only invests with 300 million plus, Mr. Igris didn't hesitate to sign that contract. The first project Felix gave him was to deal with Molly's situation. Felix already explained everything to him. He also sent a message to Molly, informing her that his manager would be the one dealing with her from now on. After getting everything worked up, Felix transferred 300 million SC to his manager to be used as investment capital during his negotiation. Up-to-date OVLS on OVL-bin.cm. Felix made sure to highlight the importance of this series to Mr. Igris, promising him a hellish fate if he *kept it up. But Mr. Igris took his words with a grain of salt. He was in this business for far too long to ruin such a godsend opportunity. Felix didn't care about what he thought or believed, he only gave him one ultimatum, and that was to bring him profit back. After dealing with his manager, he called Nora and told her to wait for him at his house. Those 3 vixens only teased him with their massage. They didn't take it another step, leaving him with a suppressed desire. Good thing he had the obedient Nora who agrees to all of his wishes and desires. And so, the moment he entered his home, he was greeted with her sitting on a chair in front of the door, wearing new dark lingerie and heels with her long wavy pink hair reaching her waist, smiling at him seductively. Such an alluring sight instantly forced his suppressed L.U.S.T to burst out. "Here we go again." Asna sulked and turned off the connection, leaving Felix to devour Nora to his heart content. "Ugh! What got you so excited?" Nora yelped out loud after getting lifted abruptly. "You don't want to know," Felix answered while running swiftly to the bedroom. Slam! The door was closed shut, blocking anyone from hearing the wild party that was about to start. Days went by quickly, as the day of Felix's game reset was fast approaching. He spent the majority of the period that passed in his training room, practicing the newly unlocked passives to further enhance his battle prowess for the upcoming game. In addition, he was calling his manager from time to time to get updated on the series' production. Mr. Igris kept true to his word and obtained a solid contact, turning Felix into one of the main shareholders of the series. This was extremely beneficial to Felix, as after the first season of the series gets released in the near future, he wouldn't need to worry about coins for a while. After all, this series would be released empire-wide and not just a kingdom-wide like the previous movie he invested in. The returns would be much higher than before, as Felix expected at least to earn $3 billion for each season released. Though, he must constantly pump funds if he wanted to continue earning that sum. However, in the present time, Felix was almost broke after investing that 300 million SC. His bank account only had 80 million left. I should probably roll the games wheel now. Felix quickly decided to participate in a new game now, even though there were still 4 days left before he could officially join one. He was doing so to take advantage of the 5 days of preparation that was always given. This strategy was used by hardcore players who were climbing the ranks in a rush since it shaves at least 5 days from the 2 months cooldown duration. Not every player did so, as the majority of them were casual players, who participate in the games only when they feel prepared. Sometimes this takes at least years before they join another game. The SGA didn't condemn them for such an action, as they were struggling to balance the large influx of new players each day. The officials probably feel glad when those players take such a long break between games. Felix washed his hand with soap to add some luck points and sat down on the couch. He took a deep breath and opened his profile interface. Immediately after, he scrolled down and clicked on a new game click. The moment he pressed the button, the same colorful wheel with tens of formats started to span rapidly before him. 3, 2, 1, stop! He ordered with a bit of anticipation in his tone. The wheel slowed its speed down gradually. Ting, ting, ting. Needle sound continued to resonate in Felix's ears, as it kept passing one format by the other until it completely froze on a format. Felix's soul immediately escaped after seeing the most dreadful format in his case. Congratulations on picking puzzle format. Felix did nothing else but stare at the ceiling absent-mindedly after landing on the most hated format game for those who were confident in their strength to beat the shit out of their contenders. The many variables within its games nullified their absolute strength. In Felix's previous life, puzzles games were actually his favorite format. He didn't win them all, but he still had a good win rate while playing them in comparison to other formats. One single small mistake could even eliminate the first ranker player, one lucky opportunity could make the last ranker clinch the win. This kind of uncertainty was Felix's jam. His trash bloodlines weren't making it easier to compete in battles format games, but in puzzle ones, at least he had a shot. If the death race luck meterage decided who would have better opportunities to clinch the championship, in the case of puzzle games, luck decided whether one emerges as champion or not. However, without the necessary intelligence to take advantage of a lucky opportunity during the game, a player could only waste it. Intelligence was still the true deciding factor to perform the best of one's ability within puzzle games. Dejected, Felix rubbed his eyelids while sighing. He gave a spiteful glare to his hands, which kept causing him misfortune. I dare you to let me down again. He threatened them like a lunatic. I swear I will cut you down and heal you back up. He rubbed them nervously while eyeing the green button that was for spinning the next wheel, which had hundreds of puzzle games within it. F***ck it. He swore and pressed the button forcefully, not worrying anymore about what happens. The wheel span rapidly again. However, this time Felix didn't leave it spin for even 2 seconds before he stopped it. The wheel gradually slowed its speed until it stopped completely. Felix glanced at the chosen game and had a bad feeling after seeing the word maze. He clicked on the game and its details were displayed in front of him. / game format, puzzles. Maze edition. Game name, Shuffle Maze. Participants number, 95, still increasing. Integration allowed, from lesser purity to peak stage 1 of replacement. Ranks allowed, silver and bronze, this is a silver game. Maze map. Surprise edition, no find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience, please click #47795692982300947 for visiting. Prizes pool, high-grade stones, peak-grade stones, instant recovery potion, hateful miasma breath, spiritual flat bone. Rules of the game. 1. Players get dropped randomly in one giant maze. The distance between the exit and the dropped spot is fixed for every player. 2. Creating alliances is allowed. 3. The maze walls shuffle after every 30 minutes. 4. The duration of each shuffle is 10 seconds. 5. Players can glimpse beyond the walls in each shuffle, but won't be able to move during it. 6. There are hidden compartments in the maze. Teleportation circles, treasure chests, traps. 7. Treasures that are in the open areas are guarded by beasts. Beast strength increase based on the chest rank. 8. Game points can be earned from eliminations, beast hunts, and treasure chests. 9. The player first to leave through the maze exit wins. 10. The game duration is 2.5 hours. 11. The player with the most points after the duration ends wins. For more information, please open your SG profile interface. Good luck to all participants, //. Just like Felix feared, the game rules included hidden teleportation circles. A luck-based addition that could teleport a player near the exit, giving him a free win. But to balance the game, that would be quite unlikely. This meant the player would only be teleported in a large diameter around the exit, and that's only if he got lucky. In worst cases, he might be sent back to where he started. That being said, Felix strangely wasn't looking at the 6th rule but actually had all of his attention attracted by the 8th rule. Can I do it regardless? Maybe it can work even in a puzzle game. He kept murmuring under his breath in a trance-like state. He felt that his luck turned upside down too quickly. Just now, he was feeling horrible over landing on a puzzle format, but after seeing the 8th rule, a plan formed in his head. A plan, if executed correctly, he would obtain a shitload of game points. The game added the 8th rule in order to help the less intelligent, or simply players who had abilities totally useless in locating the exit. They just needed to hunt for game points and hope that no one manages to find the exit before the game duration ends. This game might be a puzzle type, but still, the SGA always left leeway for those with low IQ in some way or form. After all, no one wanted to watch a game that had 100 players, but only 3 were active within the field. Hopefully it works. After a couple of minutes of deep pondering, Felix finally woke up from his daze. He lifted his head and saw that the wheel was still in front of him. He swiped it away from his face while requesting the queen to search online for his game. A moment later, a list that had only 3 Shuffle Mazes games was displayed before Felix. Those games were being played out in the entire galaxy. Each game was from a different empire. This meant the game Felix was currently on had only players from the Mariana Empire. Felix's rank was too low to join galaxy-wide games that included players from all empires. He needed to reach gold for him to compete in that level. He clicked on the game that was in the middle and was transferred to another web tab that showcased all the public details of the game. Just like before, he pressed on the player list and was met with a long string of unique players' names. / participants list. Chrome Rising _1344, bronze rank, high tier wins 3 / losses 4. For more details, click on the name. Cold Bounty _1224, silver rank, mid-tier, wins 3/losses 6. 4. Hellstorm _7754, silver rank, high tier, wins 8/losses 9. 4. Spirit Visage _2199, silver rank, peak tier, wins 6/losses 3, 4. Unpaid Landlord _6996, bronze rank, mid-tier, wins 1/losses 0. 4. Solar Mist _7778, silver rank, peak tier, wins 7/losses 4, 4. Farphobia _3355, silver rank low tier, wins 3/losses 5. 4. //. Not surprised a bit that at least 80 players were silver ranked, Felix simply kept on reading the list in a nonchalant manner. He already knew that he would be placed in a silver-ranked game even though he was still in bronze. This was the result of matchmaking rating, or in short MMR. Since Felix won his first game, it meant he was good enough to start playing against only veterans and hardcore players instead of unranked newbies. This rarely happens though, since the majority of unranked players actually end up losing at least 3 of their placement games or even all of them. This meant they would start normally climbing from low bronzer to silver. MMR affected all the players, not just Felix. Any player who had way more wins than losses get placed in games above his rank. Visit novilbin.c/m for the L-test updates. As for those who had more losses than wins, they remain playing in the same rank instead of being placed in lower rank games. The SGA wasn't stupid to let that happen, as they knew that most players would start losing intentionally to be put in lower brackets and have an easier time competing with newbies. This wasn't a video game, where one gets rewarded only virtual points after he wins. In the SG, winning meant getting a free wish to fulfill one's desires. In other words, every win was worth it, even in bronze rank. Although Felix could be said that he was affected negatively by the MMR since he was put in a higher rank game, he didn't see it as such. He actually preferred so, as it meant the wish would have a silver rank limit while he was still in bronze. This was a bonus for those managing to clinch the win over higher ranked players than them. Soon, Felix began scouting the highest ranked players in the list, marking all the threats he planned on adding to his plan. He first started off with peak-tiered silver players. He picked them one by one and made sure to do detailed homework on their bloodline abilities, strengths, and weakness. Anything that was public about them, he made sure to remember it well. He didn't want any surprises to **ck up his plan. A couple of hours went by, and Felix had studied 15 players all at once. He found some names that he somewhat recalled in his previous life, like Solar Mist and Hound Stench. One of them got famous immensely 7 years from now, while the other had a unique characteristic that set him apart from a lot of bloodliners. However, the player that Felix actually remembered thoroughly was named Bird's Call. He didn't expect that the princess of the Maganda tribe would actually be in his game. He honestly didn't want to interact with her one bit. Right now, Felix was refreshing the list every 2 minutes, wanting to see if there would be any new addition before he called it a quit. After a few refreshes, he saw 2 players joining the list: Mastermania and EL Truca. He clicked on Mastermania's name and was transferred to his profile page. Oh! His eyes shone with delight after finding out that he was actually an idol, popular enough to own a fan club with millions of members. Such free juicy exposure. He grinned while rubbing his hands in a wicked manner. Players love those kinds of popular idols the most, as by eliminating them they get a wide media exposure, thus turning them into semi-famous players instantly with low effort. Felix planned to do so as well. He needed as much exposure as possible, as relying only on his fan club to bring more fans was not enough to put him within everyone's radars. The only ways to do so was by either winning games, and winning them magnificently, or eliminating popular players and idols. That's how famous players were born before. Fan clubs were only byproducts of that. Shortly after, Felix closed the list tab and changed his outfit to training one. He planned to head to the training center to practice in his room. Although he didn't receive the maze map, nothing stopped him from trying to mimic one by relying on the previous Shuffle Maze games. Since there was no hidden addition in this game, it meant that the only difference within it would be the maze layout and hidden compartments places. After he wore his outfit, he entered his car, which was inside his garage, and drove speedily towards the center. "Hey, Felix!" Becky, who was chatting with two other girls near the elevator, immediately greeted Felix with a hand wave after he stepped inside the training floor. "Morning, Becky." Felix nodded his head towards her with a polite smile. Becky approached him and stood on her tiptoes just to reach his ears. Nora has been punished to not enter the UVR for 7 days by her brother after finding out that she sneaked yesterday. She continued whispering mischievously, "Since she is not here, do you want to hang with me?" Felix ignored the last part, as he was in deep thoughts after hearing that Nora was finally caught sneaking to his house. Well, that was fun till it lasted. He mused while patting Becky's head gently like he always did to Olivia, treating her as a child. Afterward, he went to his room, not caring about the fuming Becky behind him. Nora with her dramatic brother was already too much for him to handle. He would be a fool to add Becky to the mix. If he did so, he would never be able to focus on his training each time he stepped inside the floor. After a while, he reached his room and saw that the leader was standing next to the door. Totally ignoring the murderous gaze the giant leader was sending him, Felix requested the AI to open up the door. Read latest chapters at n/velbi.co/m. 10 minutes later, the training room was thoroughly remodeled as a humongous maze with towering metallic walls. Author note, the same height as the walls in the movie The Maze Runner. Felix didn't take long to modify the room this time because he instructed the AI to copy-paste the same map from a previous game. The only thing he instructed to be changed was the layout and hidden compartments, making them randomly. As for the beasts placed in the open, he put as much variety of them as possible, filling the desolate maze with a symphony of roars and howls. Finally, the most important ingredient, the players, were added at the end. Satisfied with the final modification, Felix nodded and instructed the room AI to drop them randomly in the maze. She did as told and teleported them all, each in a different zone inside the massive maze. Felix lifted his head and saw at the top of the towering walls, a blue barrier blocking everyone from flying above them. He walked to his left wall and punched with all of his strength, trying to check its hardness. Too bad, even with 2100 BF, he didn't leave a single dent on the wall. He massaged his bloodied knuckles and tapped on the metallic ground, finding out that the walls and the ground shared the same metal. I pity those with flying and underground abilities. He could already imagine their ugly expression after they realized that their abilities were utterly worthless in this layout. On the other hand, his abilities were going to shine even further in this game, especially his newly unlocked passive. He cracked his knuckles and walked forward with red shimmering slits. 5 days later. Felix was sitting with crossed legs on Asna bed, holding 3 cards in front of her with sweat covering his forehead. "My lovely Felix, why are you sweating? Aren't we just playing games?" Asna said playfully while wearing only a long shirt, leaving her beautiful legs exposed in the open for Felix to enjoy. But Felix did not love this at all, especially when taking this vixen to the movies again was the gambling bet they agreed on in this card game. "I am done. You keep taking advantage of your beauty to ruin our games." Felix cried out with a wronged expression and threw the cards away. "Heh, and you keep crying like this every time you are about to lose." Asna scoffed at his attempt to weasel out of their bet. "Stop bullshitting, I never did such a thing." He pointed at her exposed legs and bashed her. "How am I supposed to focus when you are showing me such a sight? Do you think my teenager hormones are a joke?" Disinterested in his tantrum, Asna kept playing with her red nails, not wanting to respond, as she had nothing to say back. After all, he was completely right. She was using every advantage to win this card game, since if Felix won, he would be able to use her face as a mold for the games. She didn't want that to happen one bit. This was the bet they always played for. If she won, he must take her to the movies, but if she lost, he gets her permission to use her face. But so far, he never won once, as Asna used each time multiple harassment techniques to ruin the game when she found that she was losing. But Felix was not a pushover, as he also created excuses each time he was about to lose. Just like in this case. "You are not answering? Fine, I am leaving then." Felix immediately excused himself with a grin after seeing her continue to ignore him. He knew that his cards were bad and he had high chances of losing. Even though Asna removed her pants in front of him, he didn't know if she was truly planning to ruin the game because she had bad cards as well, or simply bluffing to keep him playing. He didn't want to take such a risk. So he bailed out the moment an opportunity showed itself. "Tisk, if I knew this bastard had cards worse than mine, I wouldn't have given him an excuse." Asna clicked her tongue in irritation and wore a new pair of red shorts. "Oh well, at least I can enjoy watching him hide his face behind that hoodie." She chuckled and created a bucket of popcorn, watching Felix wear a hoodie with slumped shoulders, waiting patiently to get teleported inside the game hall. 20 minutes later, inside a giant hall that was almost identical to the one in Felix's first game. "Greeting my lovely players." A ravishing tall beauty, wearing a spotless short white dress with a blue lily flower on its back, suddenly appeared above 100 or so of players underneath her. Immediately after the players heard her sweet greeting, an ecstatic expression replaced their dreadfulness over the upcoming game. "Lucky! To actually have Madame Zoe as our judge, this game might not be that bad after all. I heard she is still a single to this date, even though she was subjected to multiple wooing attempts by high-ranked players. PFF, as if those buffoons actually had a chance with her. TSK, she probably paid a fortune to have that face and figure within the UVR," said a short-haired attractive girl with a jealous expression at the looks Madame Zoe was receiving from the male players. "Not as much as you." A sudden sarcastic voice responded to her. "I dare you to repeat it. Your face is as fake as my name. What are you going to do about it? Landlord, huh? I hope they drop us near each other." She narrowed her eyes at Felix, who was grinning mockingly near her face. "I would rather be dropped near beasts than a clown like you." He scoffed. "You F***er. You asked for it." She immediately struck his face with a punch. His face was too close to dodge it. Though, Felix never had such a plan, as he grinned and took it with open arms. Bam! Her punch made direct contact with his nose bridge, breaking it. Hot blood streamed down his chin coming from his nose. Yet, he merely snickered and yelled deafeningly, silencing the chatter around him, "Madame Zoe, this B***tch broke my nose when I was defending your beauty." Bewildered, everyone eyed him and the female player. They didn't think someone was daring enough to create trouble in front of a judge. Such disrespectful behavior was not tolerated by any judge. "Oh, let me see." Zoe instantly teleported in front of Felix and extended her pale hand toward his face. Felix didn't even flinch as her soft hand touched his broken nose. "Indeed, it is broken." She nodded her head and looked at the female player who broke it. "Why did you do so, Miss Perfect Figure?" she asked calmly. Yet, that tone sent shivers coursing through Miss Figure's spine. She knew that punching Felix was truly a stupid move to do in front of a judge. Alas, her anger took the best of her. Now, it was already too late to regret it, as she could only try to make something up to save herself. He insulted me continuously, I was just defending my honor. She explained with an aggrieved expression. TSK, she probably paid a fortune to have that face and figure within the UVR. TSK, she probably paid a fortune to have that face and figure within the UVR. Tisk she. Felix played a recording of her insult out loud for everyone to hear repeatedly. Ouch, she is F***CAD. Find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience, please click #47798451425045192 for visiting. Well, good for us, another one eliminated before the game. Madame Zoe eyelids twitch each time the recording plays. She is truly pissed. The other players whispered softly between each other as they viewed Madame Zoe eyeing Miss Figure indifferently. Was that what you meant by saying you were defending your honor? Zoe smiled gently. It seems to me that this gentleman was defending me and you punched him after not being able to handle his remakes. If so, you broke the rules by punching him, thus you need to be punished. Zoe lifted her hand in front of the horrified Miss Figure, who knew exactly that her head would explode if she snapped her finger. Just as she planned to beg for leniency, a merciful voice resounded in her ears akin to heavenly bells. Madame Zoe, I am willing to drop the matter and spare her life under one condition. Felix coughed, interrupting Madame Zoe from killing his prey. He didn't orchestrate all of this just to have Miss Figure get killed. He was not that bored. Oh, what do you suggest, Mr. Landlord? Zoe decided to listen to him since it was his own case in the first place. She was merely following the rules by killing her, as fights within the game hall were strictly forbidden. If he had another punishment in mind that Miss Figure could agree to, then she would accept it. I am willing to forgive her if she gave me all of her current game points and the ones she will earn during this game. Shell-shocked, the players gasped at his condition. They realized that Felix's target was this all along. After all, during this game, GPs were going to be contested on heavily to secure the win if no one managed to find the exit before the duration ends. This meant that Miss Figure would be slaving herself obediently to earn points knowingly that she wouldn't be able to use them later on. Otherwise, she would give up on farming points at all and put her faith in finding the maze exit. Such a vicious condition didn't have a single ounce of mercy. You bastard! What have I done to you? Why did you even approach me? Miss Figure was on the verge of sobbing as she pointed her trembling finger at him. Are you stupid? Felix questioned her intelligence with a sincere smile and added, Why do I need enmity against you to make a move? We are literally going to kill each other an hour from now. I am merely looking out for my benefits. He shrugged his shoulders, no hard feelings, Mississippi. Felix honestly didn't think this trick would work, as the majority of players knew how to keep their emotions in check inside the game hall. Even the most explosive player tries to act as docile as possible in this place. Any mistake or bad remark could be used against you by the judge. The worst fate was getting your head popped by her. Such a strict and brutal treatment was enforced by all MCs based on the orders of the SGA. No mercy to the offenders, so everyone would know their place. They were players, and as players, they had only one job. That was entertaining the spectators. Madame Zoe chuckled and approached Miss Figure, who was sobbing miserably. She truly was unlucky to be marked as prey by Felix. So are you going to accept his condition, or should I pop your head? She asked indifferently, yet she couldn't hide her gloating eyes at all. A judge or not, female's reverse scale was always beauty. I accept his damned term. Miss Figure agreed while sniffing softly. Any commoner would sympathize with her if they saw her condition. Too bad, she was surrounded by bloodliners. as the only looks she was receiving were gloats at her misfortune and envy at Felix for getting such free extra points farmer. They kinda were regretting not doing it first. Alas, it was too late to repeat his feat now. Alright, all of your current points and future points earned during this game will be all sent to landlord's account after the game ends. Madame Zoe looked at Felix and asked, "Are you okay with my arrangement, Mr. Landlord?" "Yes, whatever the judge said goes." Felix bowed his head respectfully and backed away to sit in a corner alone. Having Mississippi figure as GP farmer might not give him a lot of GP, but at least he would be getting some without dropping a sweat. Yet, the best part about all of this was the fact other players wouldn't try to annoy him for partnership I.P.S. after seeing that he shouldn't be messed with. Let's jump straight to rules explaining. After taking care of Felix's situation, Zoe teleported back to the podium and said, "We already wasted enough time. So I will try to make my explanation quick." She immediately jumped into explaining the game's rules instead of talking about the streaming revenue like Marlion did in Felix's first game. If Felix was playing in a bronze game, he wouldn't be spared from hearing the same explanation. However, since this was a silver game that didn't have a single player on his first game, there was no need for the MC to waste their time. Those are the rules of the game that you were given before. She pointed at the 11 rules, which were displayed on the screen, and began to explain the vague ones, so they wouldn't ask too many questions later on during the Q&A. Find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience, please click #47821441042805559 for visiting. First, let's start with the shuffling mechanism and what you should expect from it. She highlighted the third rule and fourth on the screen and put them above a massive towering maze that spanned over 20 square kilometers. Just like the imitation that Felix used to practice with, this maze was made out of a smooth silver alloy that had multiple complex formations, words, and pictures drawn upon them. Some were colorful while some were just straight-out written sentences in black. They were CLU.S. tiered on every wall and ground, creating a mysterious, breathtaking atmosphere. But for the players, they found nothing beautiful about it, as they knew that those formations and words were the keys to either activate traps or open up hidden compartments within the walls or the ground. Just the sight of their numerous numbers sent a chill coursing through their back. They understood that one wrong step might lead to their downfall. Felix was not despairing as much as the others, as he still had a trump card that helped him successfully avoid those traps in his training room. Every 30 minutes, the entire maze's walls will shuffle, like this. Madame Zoe didn't let them continue dwelling on those key formations. As she showed them on the screen, the entire maze's walls shuffle randomly, changing the entire layout into a completely different labyrinth. The process didn't take even 10 seconds. The only thing that remained stationary during the shuffle was the exit position that was in the very center of the maze. That's it, I am giving on reaching the exit. I will focus on collecting points. Same, chasing after the exit is but a wishful thinking. T/his chapter is up.d by NVEL, bin.co/m. True, after all, by the time you figure the path forward and begin treading it, the maze will shuffle, ruining your efforts. Immediately after the demonstration ended, noisy murmurs engulfed the hall, as the players kept sharing their own views on the shuffling mechanism. Sign, I pity those simple-minded apes. A smart-looking tall man, wearing a dark business suit, a blue marine tie, pointy black shoes, and thin glasses, eyed those players in a piteous manner. No one knows if he pitted their low chances of winning the game or their intelligence. Can you please be quiet? Madame Zoe requested gently, not raising her voice or scolding them as Marlion did on Felix's first game. However, the results were the same, as everyone stopped their chatter and refocused on Zoe with enchanted expressions. TSK, if those are the men I am fighting with, I doubt I would lose this game. A charming brunette woman, wearing only a thin black veil to cover her assets, mused while sizing up the male players. Please don't interrupt me again with your chatter. I still have a long list to cover. Zoe requested and continued at the same pace. You will be immobilized for 10 seconds each shuffle. The only thing you would be able to move is your eyes. She paused. Before the shuffle happens, there will be a 10 seconds alarm to warn you about it. Understood? The players only nodded their heads. Not a single one raised his hand, as they knew that questions should be asked only in the Q&A segment. After Zoe mentioned all the important details about the shuffling mechanism, she removed those 2 rules from the screen and highlighted the next 6th, 7th and 8th rule. Moving on to hidden compartments, treasure chest, and beasts. Without waiting for them to interrupt her again with their chatter, she began clarifying those rules as much as possible. Firstly, the treasure chests. She extended 2 fingers and said, there are 2 types of chests in the maze. Ones are in the open and others hidden. The difference between them is their content. She paused. The chests in the open rewards you with only game points, and the amount found inside is represented by the rank of the chest. She showed them 4 chests with different colors and sizes on the screen. Starting off from uncommon, rare, epic to finally legendary. She opened them, showcasing a varied amount of points in each one. The uncommon chest had green color and 150 GP inside. The rare chest was blue and had 400 GP inside. As for epic and legendary, both of them had 3 question marks. Those treasures are guarded by beasts, and the lower the rank of the chest the weaker its guardian, and vice versa. Killing those beasts also rewards you with game points. After seeing that they understood what she meant, she changed the content of the chests from game points to items, abilities, and scrolls. Meanwhile, in the hidden compartments chests, you will find items from the prize pool, abilities that will help you greatly finding the exit, and lastly treasure scrolls that will lead you to an open chest guarded by a beast. She smiled and added, and of course the higher the chest rank is, the better the rewards. Although the players were quite excited about it, they still didn't get fully baited to commit to a treasure hunt. They were not fools to not figure out that those hidden compartments would contain tons of traps just to obtain those treasures. The worst part was the fact they might actually end up finding an uncommon chest inside after surviving the trap salvo. So it was much better if they focused on the chests guarded by the beasts than the ones hidden. At least, the only thing they would worry about was defeating its guardians. I know that you are thinking that those hidden compartments are not worth the effort. She shook her extender finger slightly and said, you should not forget about the teleportation circles you might find inside. She enticed, those circles can teleport you 1 kilometer near the exit, helping you clinch an unexpected win. What's the catch? A random player yelled. Abashed, Zoe played with a lock of her silky smooth caramel brown hair while informing them with a mellow voice, there is only 1 in 100 chances that using the teleportation will take you near the exit. TSK thought so. Instantly, everyone lost their interest in relying on them. This vixen wanted them to use those teleportation circles so she could mock them with the audience after they fail miserably. She only cared about doing her job as the MC, and that was entertaining the spectators. As for the fate of those poor players, she didn't give a crap if they get eaten by a beast or nailed to the wall by a trap. Hell, she might even prefer seeing that. That's why she was overselling those hidden compartments. But the players were not fools to be led by her. Bunch of cowards. She cursed them in her mind while still having that gentle smile. That's all there is to know about the rules. After seeing their disinterested expression on hearing more about the hidden compartments, she quickly wrapped up the rules explanation and told them to begin the Q&A session. Madam Zoe, I want to know if the 10-second stun during the walls shuffle is just for us or the beasts will be stunned as well. The man from earlier, who was wearing a business suit and glasses, was the first to lay down his question. The beasts are free to move during the entire duration of the maze. So don't start a fight when the maze is about to shuffle. She advised. What can we expect in terms of abilities inside the chests? Another one asked. See for yourself. Next. She shooed him away with a hand wave. Is the game going to be concluded the moment one exits the maze or only after the duration ends? The moment a champion emerges, the game will be concluded. Are you expecting the champion to wait for you until you finish farming points? She glared at him for asking such a retarded question. Ha 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 ha. Cough, forget what I said. The player squirmed inside the crowd and hid under the mocking jeers of those around him. Are we going to get teleported randomly, or dropped from midair during the start of the game? You will be dropped from midair for 10 seconds. Use it wisely and try to memorize the path towards the exit. She advised them in a solemn manner. Are we allowed to pass through walls? A player asked with a hint of worry in his eyes. You can use whatever abilities you have to win. If you can run in a straight line towards the exit, do so, no one's stopping you. Next. She shrugged her shoulders and pointed her finger at another player. What's the name of this game's unique title, and what are we required to do to obtain it? A well-built big man, holding two sharp axes above his shoulders, fired off two questions with a C.O.C.Ky smirk on his face. This game title is... She paused for a few seconds to build some tension, yet everyone was still eyeing her expressionlessly. She sighed a bit downcast and said that the title name was going to be the wealthiest of them all. To obtain it you just need to collect 10.000 GP. She gave a harmless smile, like the number she just mentioned wasn't a big deal. Might as well keep it. The players murmured under their breaths and stopped thinking about the title. Oh! Speaking of titles, if you want to obtain my MVP title and recommendation letter to join the Hall of Fame. She tucked a hair strand behind her ear and said, you just need to hunt down 70% of the beasts inside the maze solo. If the unique title still had a tiny chance to obtain it, then this one was definitely out of question. There was simply no way a player had enough energy and strength to hunt down that amount of beasts within 2 hours and a half. There was just no way. The players knew so as well, thus they acted like she never mentioned it in the first place. During the game of Wally, he received an MVP title and recommendation letter from the MC Titus. However, it wasn't because he fulfilled Titus's objective like the one Zoe just gave them, but because he won using an unorthodox method that no one dared on using. Thus, he deserved to get the title. That concludes the Q&A session. She glanced at her bracelet and said, you have 1 hour to socialize. Good luck! Just as she planned to teleport to the stadium, a clear polite voice stopped her. Madam Zoe, please just 1 moment of your time. Felix, who spoke, moved away from the corner he was sitting on before and advanced slowly through the crowd of players until he reached the stage she was on. She looked at him curiously and gave him 2 minutes to speak his mind. He nodded his head respectfully to her and faced the players, who were eyeing him each with a different expression, curiosity, puzzlement, but mostly indifference. I just want to spice things up a bit for my fans by making this game a little bit more challenging for me. Before the players could bash him for his arrogant claim, he followed up with a smile, so I suggest, an open wager for all to join. Discover new Tories at nv/lbin.c/o. Immediately after hearing that term, Zoe's face brightened up in an instant. Meanwhile, the nonchalant players all broke their composure by gasping out loud in shock. Never did they expect that someone would open a wager in a silver-ranked game. This mechanism was used mostly on gold or above. After seeing that he grabbed their attention successfully, Felix started informing them about the terms of the wager. First, everyone is allowed to join. He coughed, except Miss Figure. She is my GP farmer. F***CKU. A loud feminine curse echoed in the hall. Felix merely ignored it and continued where he left. The wager terms are simple. Everyone's points earned during the game will be the trophy, and the condition to win it is by gathering the highest amount of game points during the game. The player who does so takes everything home. He paused for a second and added, however, the moment you join the wager, using the exit to win the game will not be allowed. Felix added this term to stop those who joined the bet but focused on the exit, leaving them farming points like morons for the winner. That wouldn't be fair at all. That's why he only limited this bet to point collection, as it would force the players to use whatever means necessary to obtain as many points as possible. So, they could emerge victorious at the end in both the bet and possibly the game if no one found the exit before the duration ends. This would raise the total amount of points collected to a staggering amount, making the winner of the bet a rich player instantly. Felix would be a fool to not create this wager in this game, where points were abundant, unlike in his previous game where getting them was only by elimination. Your wager is quite interesting. The man wearing the dark business suit pushed his glasses upward his nose bridge and said, however, you made that player a GP farmer for you. This meant you will exceed our points collected at the end of the game when she transfers her points. F*CKU as well. Everyone ignored Miss Figure's aggrieved curse and nodded in agreement. Felix examined this man with his good-natured smile and comforted him, Mr. Solar Mist, I never planned to count her points in the first place. So you don't need to worry about it. Meanwhile, his hidden slits were gleaming with dreadful wickedness, as he added with a sincere voice, this bet is as fair as it can get. It seems like there is no catch in this wager. Should I take part? Solar Mist pondered whether to participate or not. He was not the only one doing so, as the majority stood in silence, contemplating and analyzing their chances of winning the bet. Felix didn't rush them, neither did Zoe. They both knew that joining this wager was not a joking matter, as it was a risky subgame in itself. After all, if only 20 players decided to join, the amount collected by them at the end would surpass all of their GP they collected over their SG career individually. So, they must make sure that at least they had a chance to win the bet before they dare risking all of their points. After a while, Solar Mist was the first to express his desire into joining the wager by saying, I will join only if I am able to add some ground rules to make it fair for all of us. Be my guest and add as many rules as you please. Felix shrugged his shoulders in a careless manner, not worried about being affected negatively by his rules. First, anyone who joined the bet cannot rely on allies during any beast hunt. This rule made total sense, as it wouldn't be a fair battle when some players received assistance in their points collection while others relied on themselves. TSK, I guess I am out. Same, my abilities are supportive in nature. Might as well focus on the exit. As expected, quite few players disgruntled at this rule and gave up on joining the wager. Some of them were planning to create an alliance to win the bet and split the pie between each other. While some had a supporting bloodline that requires an ally to reach its potential, the same as Olivia's bloodline. Solar Mist ignored their grumbling noises and carried on composedly. Second rule, point transferring before the game ends is forbidden. No one disapproved of this rule, as it was simply common sense. No one wanted players to transfer their points to one player to bump him ahead of others. Or in worst cases, transferring points to avoid losing them after realizing that the bet was lost. Third rule, the moment the game ends, the bet ends as well. He clarified, in other words, if someone found the exit in the first 10 minutes unexpectedly, the player with the highest points before that will win the bet. This was exactly what Felix feared would happen. He wanted to win the bet, but at the same time win the game. However, he wouldn't be able to focus on finding the exit while hunting any beast he saw and opening any chest he found to collect points. Meanwhile, those who did not participate with them in the bet would have their eyes locked only on finding the exit and emerging as the champion. That being said, Felix was only worried about some players finding the exit by chance. As for those smart players who truly could do so by relying on their abilities, he was not concerned about them one bit. Simply because they were going to join the bet with him. He was confident that not a single hardcore player within the hall would miss such a juicy opportunity to earn a massive amount of points at once. Hell, they could even give up on the championship and focus on the bet wholeheartedly. After all, the Wish had limits. Meanwhile, that staggering amount of points could buy them items and products from the prize pool far exceeding what the Wish could provide. Not in the quality, of course, but in quantity. Felix knew exactly how to spend those game points if he managed to win the bet. He already had the perfect use for them. And it didn't have any relation with spending them in the prizes pool. That's all I have to add. Calm and collected, Solar Mist fixed his black tie while standing as straight as a light pole, not speaking anymore. Felix nodded his head and thanked him for improving the wager even further. All right, I believe you had enough time to think about it. Zoe looked at them and requested, if you plan to join the bet, ascend the stage please. Can I pass through please? A delicate short girl with long yellow bangs covering her eyes and wearing only a homemade dress made out of green leaves, passed through the crowd of players while requesting shyly. The players opened a path for her to walk through instinctively while gaping at her in disbelief. What the hell, Bird's Call, the princess of Maganda tribe was next to me all along? She is too short to be noticed, I guess. A man jokingly said after seeing her height that didn't reach even 150 centimeters. Unfortunately, the expected laughs did not greet him, but only looks of condolence and pity. Find authorized novels in faster updates, better experience. Please click #47824487231582082088 for visiting. Shit, you should not have said that, brother. The players near him immediately retreated away, creating an empty circle around him. What the do you Maya? Before he questioned what's going on with them, the same shy cute voice interrupted him. However, this time there was a hint of threat in it. Did you just call me short, Mr. Sandstorm? Sandstorm laid his eyes on Bird's Call, who was smiling gently in front of him with her eyes hidden behind her bangs. A bit scared, he gulped inaudibly and denied her accusation, not daring to answer her truthfully. He wasn't stupid to not realize that he offended her greatly by his joke. Sigh, couldn't he just take a knee and beg for forgiveness? Why lie to her? If before he had a chance to survive her rage, now he is totally screwed. Do you think she will nail him to a cross and parade him N.A.K.D. like the last offender? I doubt it. Princess Bird is quite imaginative on her punishments. I bet 100 GP that she will cleave him in half in real life. 300 GP here that she will bury him within a hive of crimson devil ants. That's quite extreme, don't you think? She already did so before. I take your bet. Now totally scared shitless, cold sweat dripped from Sandstorm's chin as he listened to the murmurs of the players around him. Who the hell did I mess with? He questioned fearfully in his mind while gazing from above at the little thing in front of him. She didn't even reach his waist. Mr. Sandstorm, I will pay you a visit later in real life. Princess Bird smiled cutely, exposing two small fangs, and passed right beside him. Suddenly she stopped 1 meter behind him and said softly, "Oh, and don't die before then." She soon continued moving forward, walking towards the stage that was already packed with 8 players standing near each other with varied expressions: indifference, coldness, arrogance, playfulness, confidence, and more. Mr. Sandstorm dropped to his knees with a deadpan expression, not knowing to this point who did he offend. The only thing he knew was that she was not messing around with her threats. The piteous looks he was receiving from those near him verified it even further. Poor thing, signed his death warranty without even knowing, might as well tell him who he messed with. A red-bearded player approached Sandstorm, who was still on his knees with his head lowered. The player patted Sandstorm's shoulder and eyed the back of Princess Bird with a hint of respect and fear. Her SG name is Bird's Call, but everyone calls her respectfully Princess Bird. She is always as gentle as spring, not bullying anyone with her high status. He sighed, however, the only thing she never tolerates is people making fun of her height. Another one chimed in, I heard it's because her father, the chief of the tribe, keeps treating her like a child even though she is an adult. I disagree, my sources told me that she is being bullied by her princess sisters constantly due to her height. I heard the same. I think it is due to her low self-esteem. After all, her sisters are beautiful and tall ladies in comparison to her. I still believe it is because of her father overprotectiveness. If not so, why would she join the SG? True, a person of her social status does not need to tussle with us for those wishes, when she can get them with a snap of a finger. She must have participated to spite her father and sisters. Sigh, the woes of the poor will never be understood by the rich. Indeed, we are risking our lives to obtain resources, while she is doing so as a tantrum. F***CK stop speaking already, you keep demotivating me. Why is Sandstorm lying on the ground with foam in his mouth? TSK, he must have fainted after hearing her background. But we still didn't even mention it. The players didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Sandstorm, who fainted only after hearing some rumors about Princess Bird. They wondered whether he would flat out die after hearing her horrifying background and the strength of her father. Well, he will find out about later when she visits him. Afterward, they all gave him a moment of silence and condolence and ignored him completely, focusing on the unique 10 players standing on the stage. No one else is going to join? Zoe asked the remaining players while looking at her bracelet. You have 30 seconds to decide. After so, you won't be able to take part anymore. Although she gave them a deadline to decide, no one dared to take a step forward and join the rank of those monsters. Each one of them was a hardcore player, who ranked at the high ends of silver rank, with a good win rate. Except for Felix, of course, whose identity was still not famous to be within their radars. After all, he only played a single game. Thank God Hound Stench decided to join their bet and not seek the exit with us. True, his bloodline is one of the best ones in this type of game. 2 players conversed softly while pointing at a bald-headed man, wearing a long brown coat that was covering his entire body, leaving only his head exposed in the open. They already knew what he was hiding behind that coat, and they were glad that he wasn't going to use it to find the exit. Damn, even Spirit Visage gave up on the exit and took part in the bet. I have no idea what's going on in his mind. His Athrea. Before he completed his sentence, he was shushed by Zoe's proclaim. The open wager has been officially closed. She smiled happily, imagining the reaction of the spectators after they hear about it. This game might even be the last push I need to get promoted to a middle ELO MC. All of this was thanks to Felix, who proposed the wager. She gave him a tender look while thinking, I will give him extra minutes during the interview segment. One could only wonder how her face would be like when she sees that he blocked all interviews. Felix noticed her weird look and tilted his head in confusion. What's wrong with her? Maybe she had fallen for you. Asna answered him seriously while chewing a mouthful of popcorn. Stop speaking out of your ass. Felix ignored her ridiculous claim and focused on the players standing near him. He scrutinized each one with a hand resting under his chin. As expected, the little devil Princess Bird, Hound Stench, Spirit Visage, Pure Muscle, Charming Sky, Solar Mist, and even Mastermania all took the bait and joined my bet. He gazed at them wickedly behind the darkness of his hoodie after his plan worked like a charm. He was confident that he had better chances of winning the game by finding the exit. In the training room, he succeeded in locating it under 1 hour 3 times. But why would he do so, when he could farm a huge amount of GP during the 2.5 hours duration. However, if he wanted to focus on collecting GP, those players wouldn't let him do so in peace after they start using everything they have to race towards the exit. That's why he proposed the open wager with only two primary conditions. 1. Point collection was a must to win the bet. 2. The use of the maze exit was banned. Those two terms helped him bring those threats into his comfort zone. Now he could hunt for points with peace of mind that his rivals were doing the same as well. Plus, he was confident that his chances of emerging as the winner of the bet were above anyone. This meant those players were going to act as his GP farmers inside the game. This was his plan all along, to make those players help him reach the 15k GP target. He needed that amount if he wanted to obtain all of the materials for the elemental potion. He had a way to do so, unrelated to having a reputation or mingling with the upper echelon. Regardless, this plan still had a major variable, and that was those 90 buffoons somehow manages to find the exit by luck at the early minutes of the game, ruining his plan as well as robbing him of a secure win. Nonetheless, Felix was willing to take this risk, because he knew that those games, which had this kind of farming format, were quite rare. So he must gain as many benefits out of it as possible. He could even sacrifice the championship and wish to do so. This was exactly what baited those hardcore players as well. The massive amount of GP waiting for them at the end of the game. Felix's attention was quickly brought back to Zoe after she created a holographic contract, containing all the terms and rules, which were mentioned before by him and Solar Mist. She then raised it in the air for all to see. Based on the authority given to me by the SGA, I announced that Landlord, Princess Bird, Solar Mist, Master Mania had all agreed to the terms of the open wager. She waved her finger in a cleave motion towards the contract, splitting it in half. Immediately after, the contract burned off, leaving only one word written in blazing flames. Approved! Felix and the players all facepalmed at this sight. Does she always need to be this melodramatic? They knew that none of what she just did was necessary procedures. She could have kept it simple and say that she approved of their wager. She was the judge, for God's sake. Anything she said in this game goes, as long as it was within the rules. Alright guys, I got to go. My dear audience is waiting for me. Uncaring about their reaction, she glanced at her bracelet and saw that time was running fast. You have only 30 minutes to socialize and make friends. We wasted enough time on the wager bet. She waved her hand at them and teleported away, leaving them alone in awkward silence. This time it lasted for quite a bit, as there was no point making allies or partners during this game. After all, everyone was going to be dropped randomly around the maze. It wouldn't make sense to create a partnership here, just to end up not meeting inside the game. However, the silence did not last for long, as one of the players on the stage made his move. Name, Landlord, no picture, no bloodline or integration information, a total anonymous player. With an apathetic tone, Solar Mist read Felix's profile information from his bracelet as he approached him a step at a time. Felix turned his head and faced Solar Mist indifferently. He neither spoke nor taunted. He simply kept staring at the approaching Solar with hands in his hoodie pockets. You played only one game so far. He paused. Oh, and you won it as well. Marvelous. As he kept reading, his stoic expression began showing some emotions, especially when he saw details about Felix's legendary bloodline. To actually own a poison element legendary bloodline, UAR. Can't you say everything at once and get it over with? Annoyed, Felix interrupted him, not interested in hearing the rest of his build-up. He knew that Solar Mist was simply trying to put pressure on him in front of everyone since he appeared as the weakest link within the hardcore players. Solar Mist assumed so, and others did as well. But Felix wouldn't allow them to put him under their feet before the game even begun. Felix never had tendencies to accept insults and provocations without instant retaliation. If someone insulted him, he could never stomach it for even 1 minute before paying it back. Why? Because this was the UVR and he could be as C.O.C.KY as he wanted without fearing getting hunted in real life for offending someone with a big background. He didn't use a total anonymous persona, just let some silver player try to undermine him in public and get away with it freely. Felix stretched his arms behind his back in a lazy manner while standing 1 meter in front of Solar Mist. He smirked and fired the first shot, uncaring about Solar's reaction. Just because you are wearing a business suit and smart-looking glasses, your intelligence won't increase, you know? He continued his mockery. We all know that your photographic memory that you take pride in was merely a result of a potion gifted to you by your wife and not a talent gained during birth. So stop acting all smart and composed. It doesn't fit your element at all. Felix waved his hand dismissively while walking away, not wanting to entangle with Solar Mist for too long. He wasn't that bored. However, what he said was enough to set Solar Mist's heart into a furious blaze, as he gripped his fists tightly, trying his best to hold it in. He didn't think that Felix would actually bring his wife into this, but he understood that by lashing at Felix wildly, he would just reinforce Felix's claim that his image didn't fit his element, which was quite close to the truth. As based on his name, one could easily figure out that his element was fire-based, and for users of such an element it was a known fact that their personality was wild and aggressive. Oh snap! He didn't just say that in his face. How bold, to actually bring that matter in public. He truly doesn't fear death. Meanwhile, the players underneath the stage were astonished at the revelation that a newbie had just insulted publicly a famous veteran within silver ranks. Ha ha ha. On the other hand, the players on the stage didn't bother hiding their mocking laughter. Some took it even a step further and laughed while pointing their finger at Solar Mist, uncaring to save him some face. They wanted to provoke, humiliate, and most of all break his concentration. In their eyes, as long as they managed to plant this humiliating image in his head, Solar Mist wouldn't be able to focus properly during the game, thus lowering his chances of performing to the best of his ability. This was exactly what Solar Mist tried to do to Felix. By relying on the excuse that Felix was merely a newbie, yet he was standing arrogantly with them, hardcore veterans. However, Felix didn't even let him finish his build-up before he shut him down in front of all. Now, he could only stare hatefully at Felix's retreating back, under the jeers of those around him. Yet, that's as far as he did. His public image was far more important to him than anything. He soon relaxed his clutched fists and fixed his tie with the same stoic expression he always had. He turned his head and said calmly to his peers, "I am glad I entertained you, my fellow contenders." Yet the responses he got were not pleasing to the ears at all. TSK, what a stuck-up. Still as obnoxious as ever. My greatest entertainment will be smashing your head to paste. Pure Muscle said while cracking his knuckles. How cute, still trying hard to keep his image afloat after being humiliated by a newbie. Charming Sky giggled. Heh, I bet you wish you didn't drink memory potion, so you can forget what happened here. Solar didn't even flinch at those incoming insults. He simply kept standing uprightly with a hidden glint as he eyed Felix, who was sitting on the podium, facing him with pitch-black darkness under his hoodie. He wished he had the same hoodie. At least he would be able to express his rage without being noticed. Even though, I cut him short. The bastard still exposed the knowledge of me having legendary bloodline. Felix smiled bitterly, as he noticed the weary looks those threats he marked were giving him. If before they assumed he was a newbie who got C.O.C.KY after winning his first game, now, they believed that he got what it took to stand with them. Legendary bloodlines were not a joking matter. Anyone who had one gets automatically labeled as a dangerous individual in every game. Those individuals receive full investigation of their abilities and fighting style. Therefore, any player who did not watch Felix's first game immediately began searching for his highlights to prepare themselves against him. What the f.u.c.k is this bloodline? How can he use so many inducements? Is this a joke? How can we fight against this? He literally can play us to death. It seems the majority of his inducements need to be absorbed. Haha, I just need to hold my breath and his abilities will not affect me at all. How are you supposed to fight like that? Especially against this monster who also can fight melee form? True one punch and you will absorb his poison obediently. Doesn't that mean he had no counterplay? No, it seems that his mental defenses are not that strong. He was affected quite badly by Abyssal Screech during his last fight. If that was his only weakness, might as well escape the moment we see him. The players kept exclaiming and arguing each time they noticed Felix using a different inducement or ability. Holograms displaying his highlights covered the entire hall. Even Felix with his thick face still felt a bit embarrassed seeing himself being publicly showered with attention. Honestly, he would rather remain low-key and be underestimated during the game than receive this kind of unnecessary attention. But now everything changed after that bastard Solar exposed his bloodline. He could see it in their eyes, fear and worry about meeting him inside the maze. They were not arrogant to not give him face after seeing his mind-boggling abilities and his efficient use of them. Regardless, those who thought so were only the players underneath the stage. As for those hardcore players, they only marked him as a solid contender, nothing more, nothing less. They already found out that his integration was still in the purification realm based on the fact that he used only 2 active abilities and passives. The only thing they didn't figure out was that if he was on greater purity or origin purity. Check new CHDers at novilbin.com. Despite so, they still had a massive advantage over him. After all, to reach mid or high tier silver, one must be a peak first stage bloodliner to be able to contest and win those games. In their eyes, Felix might take them for a ride if they fought, but he wouldn't be able to win against them. Felix could conclude so from the way they were looking at him. He smirked mockingly, "Oh boy, I will make you eat those thoughts soon enough." "Felix, that child is looking at you weirdly," Asna informed him suddenly. "Child?" He turned his head and saw the little devil princess bird facing him with a creepy smile. Plus, with her bangs covering her eyes, it made the image even worse. His eyelids twitched dreadfully at this sight. "What does this little devil want from me?" "Oh, Felix, she is approaching you." "Shut up, I can see it as well." Felix fixed his laid-back attitude and sat cool-headed, expecting a battle far more dangerous than the one with Solar Mist. He saw the many horrors this little thing caused in his previous life. What she was doing before in this timeline, parading men nailed to a cross or putting them on a leash like pets, was merely a child play compared to her future self. The only one he didn't want to have any interaction with during this game was her. That's why he always treated her as air, trying to stay as far as possible from her. Too bad, things never go as planned for Felix, as the first thing she said after reaching his side made him flinch. "Can you please tell me the name of your bloodline? I am curious," she requested shyly with her head buried in her chest. Felix coughed dryly and asked, "Why do you want to know it?" "My father's bloodline library has 8 bloodlines that can allow the user to switch inducements. I want to see if your bloodline is based on a new species or from the ones he had." She requested softly again, "So I hope you can tell me its name." "My father's hobby is to collect information about those unique legendary bloodlines. As much as I want to help the chief's hobby, I apologize, but I can't share any information about my bloodline." He clarified, "I am bound by a contract to not share even its name." "Oh, that's a shame." She sighed dejectedly. Was that all? He asked. Yes, sorry for bothering you, and good luck on the game. She gave him a polite smile and returned to her place. After seeing that she left, Felix sighed in relief. Although he didn't give a shit about her or the chief, he still needed to give her an answer. There was no need to go out of his way and offend her by telling her to F***ck off. Her father's strength was enough to bring the entire Alingsator kingdom to its knees, and for Felix, who wasn't even in greater purity, it was better to avoid messing with the daughters of such an entity. So he could only suck it up and please her request to not approach him again. He wasn't worried about his real-life location getting found by her, but the fact she would do her very best into trying to do so. This meant he would be always on edge in the UVR in what he does or say. He didn't want to have that paranoid feeling like he was always being watched. Meanwhile, the players near them tried their best to eavesdrop on their conversation. But Felix and Princess Bird expected such behavior to happen, thus they were keeping their conversation as quiet as possible before. The players near them tried their best to eavesdrop on their conversation. But Felix and Princess Bird expected such behavior to happen, thus they kept their conversation as quiet as possible. What do you think they were talking about? Mississippi Charming Sky. A 2-meter shredded giant stood with a N.A.K.E.D. upper body, exposing his hairy chest and abs, asked the same alluring woman, who was wearing only a dark thin veil to cover her body. Why don't you go ask them yourself, muscle boy? She smiled teasingly, not caring about his fuming expression. Forget it, it was my fault to ask a B***tch like you. Pure Muscle turned around and left her alone. But I do wonder what that cutie wanted from landlord. Intrigued, she licked her lips seductively while giving them one last glance. The others as well, focused on different things after they lost interest in Felix. Just because he was the one to propose the open wager, it didn't make him the main lead of it. In their eyes, their true rivals who would make them struggle to emerge as the winner were those around them. Players they either played with before or they heard about online. As for Felix, he still got a long way before he reached their levels. That's what they believed, and that's what Felix was going break during this game. The belief that a newbie would always be under the mercy of veterans in the games, due to the unbalanced ranks and integrations in each game. Just like in this case, Felix's integration still didn't even reach greater purity, while those hardcore players already on the peak of one stage of rep. This wide gap in strength resulted in the newbies to get bullied constantly by the veterans during the first games. The veterans themselves went through the same hell during their starting days. Only those who survived the early first games could be called veterans. Felix as well went through this newbie baptism in his previous life. He lost all of his placement games plus a few more following after. But he never complained about it, he was simply glad that he did not die in them. However, things were going to be different in this life. As of now, Felix was the one who was going to bully those silver veterans and break this eternal circle. Before long, the 30 minutes passed by in a heartbeat. The players didn't chat as much as before, to concentrate and calm their minds. My lovely players, you will be teleported in the stadium in 10 seconds. Prepare yourselves and good luck. Everyone stopped whatever they were doing the moment they heard Zoe's announcement. Felix jumped down from the podium and stretched his restless limbs. The other players near him each did their own ritual before they get teleported. Some kissed a necklace, some created a bucket of water and splashed their faces with it, and some prayed for good fortune. Each had their own superstition ritual they used before every game for good luck and most importantly to survive at the end. Losing a game was never the problem, as they could always queue up and try again, but dying uneventful death was what scared the shit of every player in the SG. 3, 2, 1. Immediately after Zoe finished her countdown, the bodies of the players disintegrated into light particles until no one was left inside the massive hall. Mastermania. Mastermania. I love you, Mastermania. The first thing Felix heard after his body reconstructed inside the stadium was the crazed cheering of Mastermania's fans. He smirked as he sized up the target of this unconditioned love. A tall, handsome man that had the kind of face that stopped everyone on their tracks to feast on it. He had tousled dark brown hair, which was thick and L.U.S.Trues, and his eyes were a mesmerizing deep ocean blue. He smiled politely and waved his hand towards his fans, showing appreciation for their continuous support. Oh my God, he waved at me. He is so handsome, I am going to faint. His smile almost gave me a nosebleed. His female fans, all had red cheeks, burning from excitement and rush at seeing their idol caring for them. However, those chants did not last for long, before they got engulfed by much louder chants and drumming noises, deafening the ears of those poor women. Landlord! 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 Landlord of Inducements Club! Tell me what we seek. The same man with a bushy orange beard, who swore his loyalty to Felix during his previous game, roared loudly through a cheering gadget to make his voice heard even further. To see veterans get played to death. To see new unique inducements. Find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience, please click #478877421845088097 for visiting. To see his face. Scrap the last one and chant his name. He smacked the back head of the fan who chanted the third one and ordered the club ardently. Landlord! Landlord! Visit novelbin.c.m for updates. Every player and spectator stood awestruck, hearing and seeing a new B fan club dominating the famous fan club of Mastermania. Even Felix himself had no idea that his popularity had reached this point from just one game. He assumed that he needed at least 3 games before his club gained a solid footing. After all, his club needed materials to brag about him in order to seduce new members into joining. But what the hell was he seeing now? A club created from a single game, dominating a deep-rooted club without any way to retaliate. How could those ladies contest in shouting with those barbaric hairy men who were charmed to support and cheer Felix, not by his looks, but his brutal fighting style, and specifically his unique bloodline? There was just not a chance. At the end of the day, SG was a platform for spectators to seek blood and gore, not to appreciate the player's good looks. That was merely a bonus. Mastermania's eyelids twitched slightly at this sight. He wasted a massive amount of resources to build his idol image. From doing interviews, meeting with fans, streaming his daily life, and more F***ed-up things to raise his fan club into what it is today. But here he was basking under the cheers of another player, who didn't even show his face to the public. He couldn't accept this bullshit fact, neither wanted to. However, having gained an understanding of how things work in showbiz, he knew that he couldn't show even a hint of being affected by those cheers. Otherwise, the cameras wouldn't miss it and make sure to plant his face on the large screen for everyone to see. By then, the aloof handsome image he built would be shattered in an instant. Might as well take advantage of this situation and grab more attention to me. He approached Felix with his hand extended, a clear sign to all that he was seeking a handshake. The cheeky bastard was quite far from Felix, so for him to extend his hand in this way was an obvious attempt at stealing attention from Felix to him. Zoe as the MC clearly didn't miss such a juicy interaction. She immediately switched the camera to focus only on it, displaying the upcoming drama for all to see. Mastermania glanced at his handsome image on the screen and smiled even more beautifully, sending a second wave of female screams in the audience. Heh, works every time on those shallow women. Even though he thought so, his face never showed any hint of disdain. He merely kept walking towards Felix step by step, not rushing at all, to gather as much attraction as possible. He was trained to do so by his agency from the moment he went a fully fledged idol. This was his path, to reach peak popularity by relying on the SG platform. As for winning games, that was merely secondary. What's important to him and his agency was the massive revenue he earned after each game, ranging from 100 million to $500 million based on the streaming percentage he received. The only downside to this kind of coin farming was the risk of dying during the games, as other players would constantly keep hunting him down to gain instant success. But Master Mania didn't survive the previous games just based on his looks. Anyone who believed so would be taken on a ride. If it was not for his strong prowess, Felix wouldn't have added him to his threat list. To be an idol, one should first have total confidence in his strength. Otherwise, surviving the first game was merely wishful thinking. "Oh, it seems like you are quite popular, Mr. Landlord." Immediately after facing Felix, he began flattering him with a polite, charming smile. Felix kept switching sight between Master Mania's sincere eyes and his extended hand that was in front of him. The players watched the sight, curious about Felix's reaction. Meanwhile, Zoe kept speaking passionately about the birth of a new friendship between two popular players, asking the fan clubs to join hands and cheer for them both. Unexpectedly, Felix tilted his head to the side, not even bothering to take his hands outside of his pockets, and asked, utterly bewildered, "Do I know you to act friendly with me? F*** King retard, that's what you get by being C.O.C.KY. Haha. I already filmed it. Him walking for 30 seconds with a smile just to get slapped. Master Mania was truly trying his best to hold his aloof image in place. Alas, the mocking jeers of the players around him made it nigh impossible. His face couldn't help but contort, twisting all of his handsome features under the eyes of everyone. "Come on guys, let's chant for him, his face is getting ugly, we don't want his aloof image to be ruined." True, how could he buy bread anymore if that happened? Master Mania! Master Mania! The players didn't let him even express his rage in peace, as they cheered his name sarcastically, uncaring about being booed by the girls in the audience. Felix chuckled at the trembling Master Mania, whose eyes were about to spit flames at his direction. He truly didn't know what this retard expected to happen by approaching him in that high-profile way. Did he believe that by adding Felix forcefully to his seeking attention gimmick, he would be received nicely by him? What crack was he on? He should feel happy that Felix stopped bothering about him after seeing that his club popularity was not shabby. Yet, he had to come and deliver himself to be slapped in public. That was a quite unexpected reaction from Landlord. Doesn't he know that one should never slap a smiling person? Zoe criticized Felix's ungentlemanly behavior, while shamelessly highlighting Master Mania's ugly face at close range, showing every small detail for his fans to see. She might have sounded angry, but her bright face couldn't hide her delight at the unexpected twist. She glanced at the invisible hologram and saw the numbers of spectators kept increasing in her stream while barraging the chat window with an unending shower of comments. "Boo-hoo, how could they do this to my Bobo? My Prince Charming image instantly shattered at that face. Haha. I will use his ugly face as a screensaver." To actually have the balls to slap an idol in front of millions of spectators, Landlord truly doesn't give a crap about his image. Image? What image are you talking about? He is literally an anonymous player. Why does he need to care? Ah. That slap was truly satisfying. I always hated those fake-faced idols. I am more intrigued about this newbie. Hopefully, his strength backs up his arrogance. You are in for a treat, brother. Hee, you have no idea what you were missing. You are about to see why they call him Landlord of Inducements. Can't wait to see some new inducements. Same plus 1 inch. Same plus 4,112 inch. Felix's club took over the stream chat, bragging about him and sharing links to his previous highlights to the rest of the spectators, who knew nothing about this newbie who popped out of nowhere. Zoe smiled gleefully as she read some of those comments and closed the chat, refocusing on the players. Specifically on Felix, who stood in a lazy manner, wearing a black hoodie with a yellow smirking emoji on it, comfortable black sweatpants, and white sport sneakers. I was planning to interview Mastermania first, then Princess Bird. But it seems the main character of this game is Landlord. She smiled while snapping her finger, manifesting large white feathered wings from her back. She flapped them once and jumped from the commentary platform that she was standing on. The audience watched her fly towards Felix gracefully with a spellbound expression. Meanwhile, the players underneath could only sigh helplessly at this drama queen. But they were already numb to those acts. Zoe was not the only female MC who loved doing such a thing, but every female MC in the SG. Hell, there was even a website made specifically to collect those dramatic entrances and rate them down with proper reviews. The existence of this website made things even worse, as it gave birth to a hidden competition between those female MCs, on whom was doing it better. Meanwhile, the male MCs didn't give a crap about all of that and simply dropped as fast as possible, uncaring about how they appeared in the process. The players preferred having a male MC because of that, while the audience preferred having a female MC to watch those breathtaking dramatic entrances. Felix smiled wryly as he watched Zoe approaching him while flapping her angelic wings periodically, giving a sense of harmony. She must have really practiced before to reach such a state. From the look on her face, she was clearly pleased with the outcome. Whoosh! He closed his eyes as her wings raised a cloud of dust after she landed next to him. Cough, cough. Both Mastermania and Felix coughed after she flapped her wings one last time before they burst into light particles glamorously. Loud cheers immediately followed after, basking Zoe over her delightful performance. Hee hee, let me see how you topple over this Bella. She thought to herself. Satisfied and content, she faced Mastermania and Felix, who had their clothes all dirted because of her. She quickly tried to apologize for it, as she didn't want to get a lackle.u.s.ter interview due to their resentment. However, the moment she opened her mouth, trying to speak, nothing came out. She froze in disbelief, as she knew that there was only one reason that could cause this dastardly effect. She stiffly focused on a small tag above Felix's head, and almost had a heart attack after seeing her worst nightmare. She didn't see it before, as this tag only pop up in the interview segment. No interviews. The one and only enemy to every MC in the SG. They abhor the mere idea of seeing it in their games, especially if it was on a popular player. They even rallied many times to protest for its removal to the SG rules community, using the pretense that it ruins the atmosphere of the games. Thus leading to a mass dissatisfaction within the spectators, whether the ones watching live or the stream. Regardless, their attempts were always met with a refutable denial. The Queen AI controlled the UVR, based on one core rule. Free will. She could never compromise on this rule, not even to the SGA. So even if the Alliance wanted to fulfill the MC's requests, their hands were tied by the Queen. So Zoe was left with no other choice but to use her secret weapon that helped her before, convincing some players to remove the block. Heartbroken, she sulked pitifully while staring at Felix with puppy eyes, almost tearing up to gain his sympathy. Too bad, Felix was already numb to those looks, as Asna always used them before to convince him into taking her to the movies. So, he simply continued dusting his clothes, totally ignoring her attempts. TSK, this bastard didn't even respond to me. Yet you expect to succeed with your ugly face? Asna scoffed while hugging a new large bucket of popcorn. She must have really loved its flavor to keep always eating it and not something else. After all, she could totally recreate the same flavor of anything Felix ate before, using his memories. Felix's eyelids twitched and just kept dusting himself, uncaring about those two manipulative vixens. Before long, Zoe gradually stopped her act after seeing that it was not helping much. She clicked her tongue in irritation and decided to interview Master Mania, who kept standing in the same place, neither speaking nor doing anything since the moment Felix slapped him publicly. He knew that refuting or insulting Felix to vent his humiliation wouldn't work in his favor. After all, Felix was right. They didn't know each other to act friendly, especially in the SG platform, where enmity was running rampant. LL knew rise at N0V/LBI/.cm. He wanted to insult Felix badly in retaliation, but he couldn't afford the consequence of appearing immature to his fans. He already got a strike 1 by ruining his aloof image. He neither could handle the damages of strike 2 nor his agency. Not to mention, if he did so, Felix would not stay quiet, as he would make sure to roast his ass publicly, unworried about his image. Felix had nothing to lose or worry about. His fans were as f.u.c.k.ied up as he was. They might even cheer him harder after each insult. But in the case of Master Mania, the moment he did the same, his female's fans would instantly change clubs. They were his fans due to his handsome aloof looks in the first place, and to keep them, he must always appear as so. Felix always scorned those idols who were chained to their own image. But he understood that they saw the SG platform as merely a business opportunity to make money, not a glorious platform to obtain glory and resources like the majority. Mr. Mania, I don't want to negligent your feelings, but I have to ask. Madame Zoe shoved her microphone in Master Mania's face and asked, while glaring at Felix in irritation, what was your first thought after your polite handshake was rejected in an ungentlemanly manner? From her aggressive actions and tone, it was clear that she was holding a grudge against Felix. Master Mania did not even mind the way she shoved the mic in his face. He was too desperate for someone to get him out of the shithole that Felix put him in without ruining his image. Zoe just did so by her question. Honestly, I was just slightly surprised, nothing more. He smiled warmly as he clutched the mic like his dear life was relying on it and continued, Mr. Landlord is entitled to reject my handshake. I don't think that my face is big enough to gain everyone's respect. He bowed his head slightly at Felix's direction and did the unexpected. I apologize for putting you in such a difficult position, Mr. Landlord. Oh, my. Madame Zoe exclaimed and tried to get back the mic from Master Mania to speak her mind, but the bastard was gripping on it tightly, not planning on letting go anytime soon. And so, she left it and created another one quickly. The last thing she wanted was to create another embarrassing situation. Begging Felix publicly for an interview but still getting rejected was enough for her. I don't think it was necessary to apologize, Mr. Mania. No one was at fault in this situation. It was simply a misunderstanding. I assume that even Mr. Lord is thinking the same. Just as she faced Felix and wanted to ask him if he thought so as well, her mouth refused to let out the words. King bastard. I curse you and that stupid privacy option. She turned around and continued to speak with Mr. Mania, not showing a single hint of embarrassment after her failure. She then began asking him the usual basic questions, such as the objective he planned to achieve in this game or his wish if he managed to ace it, find authorized novels in, faster updates, better experience, please click #47917257199774337 for visiting. Master Mania responded to each of her questions eloquently, trying his best to rebuild his image. If it was not for fear to get beat up by the players, he wouldn't mind hogging the mic for the entire duration of interviews. Sadly, Madame Zoe quickly got bored with his genetic answers and coughed to interrupt him from his constant fans ass-kissing. Mind telling us how confident are you in winning the open wager? She asked. Without a single hesitation, Master Mania answered confidently, "If I wasn't sure that this bet was in the bag, I wouldn't have joined in the first place." He smiled handsomely towards the camera and added, "I promise you, my dear fans, that I will show you a new version of me." He glared at Felix, who had his hand on his face, probably scratching his cheek in boredom, and said lastly, "You will love it." The spectators didn't know if he was speaking to them or Landlord, as they clearly saw the weird way he was eyeing Landlord. But they didn't bother to think deeply about it, as no matter what he meant by it, they were still looking forward to his promise. After so, he gave back the mic to Madame Zoe and went to socialize with other players. Zoe didn't even bother to catch up to him, as this was exactly what she wanted, for him to bounce and let her interview the darling of the Maganda tribe chief, Princess Bird. However, before she left to seek her, she didn't forget to show her displeasure to Felix over ruining such a fine piece of drama by his inactivity. Felix didn't even look at her, as he was currently busy chatting with Asna about a new way to help him perform better during the game. Zoe humphed and left him alone, promising herself to give him a small duration of camera exposure inside the maze. "You can only blame yourself for disregarding me like this." The spectators immediately began chanting "Little Princess" to encourage her after they saw that Zoe was struggling to keep the conversation afloat with the shy Princess Bird. Every time she asked a question, Princess Bird started stuttering and fiddling with her fingers, not able to express what she wanted to say properly. The stupid spectators' chants made it even worse, as her brain completely short-circuited after hearing her name resounding in the stadium. Zoe sighed and stopped giving her a hard time, not daring to offend her. She moved to Charming Sky, who she believed would not be a disappointment like Landlord or Princess Bird, based on her extrovert personality. Unfortunately, Charming Sky turned to be an extreme extrovert, as she instantly turned the conversation into an E.R.O.T.I.C1, sending wolves' howls and ear-piercing whistles in the stadium. Depressed and crestfallen, Zoe decided to end the interviews and announce the beginning of the game. She truly ended up with the short stick after choosing those four as her main targets to interview. One rejected her interview even after using her secret weapon. The second stole her mic and tried his best to hijack the conversation. The third couldn't even speak one sentence in public without stuttering 100 times. The last turned into a complete perv, who was natural in her SCX life unlike her. "I hope you at least show me a good performance inside the maze." She wished silently while watching the players randomly teleport above the foggy maze that was hidden to block everyone from seeing its paths and content. "Begin the countdown," she announced loudly the moment she saw that the players were standing in their position. Felix and the rest of the players hovered 500 meters above the maze, each in a different position. Felix squinted in focus, preparing for the moment Zoe removes the fog. They only had 10 seconds of free fall to examine the paths and positions of the open chests. A quite difficult task to achieve, as only a selected few would be able to memorize the complex paths of the maze leading to the exit using only 10 seconds. But Felix was not worried about this at all. He already had a way to overcome this issue. Clear the fog and drop. By the time the audience countdown hit 0, Zoe ordered with her hand raised above her head. Immediately after, the fog withdrew rapidly towards the middle of the maze, resembling a tub sink, sucking all the water inside in a swirling manner. The process took merely a few seconds before the maze magnificence was displayed in front of the players and spectators, who had yet to see it. Even though the players were exposed to it inside the game hall, this and that were totally different things. Seeing its towering smooth metallic walls, forming thousands of different paths, gave the players a sense of beauty. Plus, the complex formations, colorful images, and calligraphic words made it even appear even better. However, that sense of beauty was soon replaced with dread after they noticed that at least 99% of the paths were leading to dead ends, leaving only a few selected ways to reach the exit. Just as they wanted to trace a path from the exit to their assumed random drop spot, Zoe sent them down rapidly, not caring about breaking their focus. She already told them that they had 10 seconds during the drop, not before it. Get your avrite ovals at no/v/e/lbn.com. Felix's slits shimmered with red light as he scanned the entire area he was about to land in. He merely gave a glance at the exit and ignored it, as that was never his target, but the beasts in the open chests around him. 1, 2, 3, 4. He counted each beast he noticed, marking its position mentally and moving on to the next target. He spent the entire duration of the drop doing nothing but this. Whoosh! Bam! He smashed into the metallic floor, sending an explosive wave of wind around him. Although the collision sounded pretty serious, Felix neither got hurt nor the floor got damaged. One had invulnerability during the drop and the other was too solid to be harmed by anyone participating in this game. That was intense. Felix jumped a few times to check if his body was affected in one way or another from that landing. After a couple of attempts, he stopped and stretched his limbs while sizing up the towering walls surrounding him with a numb expression. He was already familiar with them to the point he dreamed about them during the past few days in his training. It was quite normal behavior after he spent a minimum of 14 hours each day practicing between those walls. He was already numb to their terrifying size that could leave anyone in a state of shock. Asna used my memories and construct 2 paths, one leading to the exit and the other leading to the strongest beast I found in this area. Felix laid down his instructions while squinting at one spot on the wall, focusing deeply on it, like he was trying to penetrate its thickness and see what's on the other side. All right. Leave it to me. Excited and eager, Asna began reading his memories. She was extremely happy that she could join him and play as well. That's why the moment Felix requested her assistance before, she didn't hesitate to accept. She was already bored of watching him have all the fun. So she couldn't miss this chance of using her expertise to take a part in. This was one of Felix's hidden cards. Asna's memory reading. For Felix, who forgets what he ate in lunch constantly, Asna's assistance was heaven sent. As now he could focus on hunting the treasure chests and hidden compartments near him while leaving Asna to lead him in direction of the exit. Although he was not planning on using it to win the game, he didn't want to hunt beasts in the opposite direction of it. It was a much better option to focus on chests on the exit way, so if he met with any players during his journey, he could eliminate them, thus removing few variables that could affect his GP farming wager. Felix, the first done. The path to the exit, plus the one leading to the strongest beast, are both at your first right. I will keep giving you directions on the way. As expected, Asna didn't even use a couple of seconds before she finished her layout. Felix didn't respond to her as he was sweating bullets while continuously staring at the wall with his red shimmering slits. Felix was currently using one of the passives that he unlocked after reaching 45% of integration. Ultima Infrared Vision. As the name suggests, the passive gave Felix an infrared vision just like a true serpent. However, since Felix was using the bloodline of the primogenitor, the infrared vision he unlocked was too strong for his eyes and brain to handle. For normal infrared visions unlocked by other bloodlines, one could keep them active as long as their mental strength could handle the pressure of seeing everything in black and white besides things that emit heat. On the other hand, Felix's passive allowed him to do the same with an unhindered vision that could penetrate anything blocking his sight. Walls, buildings, and even ground, nothing that emits heat could escape his vision. Plus, the range was unlimited. He could see infrared objects even thousands of miles away. Unfortunately, that wasn't happening anytime soon or probably never will, as Felix's trashy mental energy wasn't enough to sustain such a heavy load. Heck, right now he was struggling to push the limits of his mental energy to see hundreds of meters in front of him. Don't even mention thousands. So far, he managed to remove 5 walls, letting him gaze at tens of red auras with all kinds of shapes. Some belong to beasts, while some belong to humans. Just as he tried to push into the sixth wall and see beyond it, his head got assaulted by a nasty headache, warning him that his feeble mental strength was about to give in. Huff, huff. Felix closed his bloodshot eyes immediately after he began feeling his head aching. He breathed ruggedly as he took deep breaths in exhaustion. However, a satisfied smile was affixed on his face, clearly pleased with the results of his test. Though he did the same test in the training room, Felix had nothing to lose to repeat it in the real game. After ending the limit test, Felix planned on staying put for a minute until the aching goes away. He would rather waste a minute than walk forward, stepping on those lines and words that could be a trap keys waiting for a prey to step on. Asna didn't give him directions as she was waiting until he reactivates his infrared vision. It sounded quite weird that passive abilities could be activated as well. However, there was a quite big difference between active abilities and passives on the way they activate. As active abilities require only elemental energy for to work, simple as that. Meanwhile, passives were split into two types. 1. Passives that provide an instant buff to the host without needing anything in return, such as Felix's poison immunity and super strength. 2. Passives that need mental energy or brain power to handle their continuous activation load, like infrared vision, night vision, cloud surfing EXT. Those passives shown only on stronger bloodliners who reached higher stages of replacement, as their mental strength got stronger to the point it could handle the continuous activation of those passives without repercussions, touring them into the first type of passives. Unfortunately, Felix was still far from that stage. He could keep his infrared vision on for 1 hour or 2 at best. And that's only if he focused on nearby areas. If he decided to push its potential to the limit, his head would start aching again. All right, show the way. It's time to hunt. Felix inspected the ground ahead of him in black and white, not seeing any other color but the two. He turned his head to the left and noticed an array of shimmering red rifles pointing at a spot a few meters ahead of him. He looked to his right side as well and found nothing to worry about. Although Felix could only see the hidden traps, but not the mechanism needed to activate them, he was not worried at all. The ability to see danger beforehand was enough for him to not get touched by a single trap. Traps were deadly only because they were hidden, but if they were exposed like this, at least 90% of their power gets taken away. Asna did not dilly-dally as she told him enthusiastically to head right first then left and keep going straight ahead until he meets 3 paths cross. Immediately after getting a clear direction, Felix bolted forward while keeping close attention to the trap at his right, preparing at any given moment to dodge. Phew! 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 As expected, the trap activated the moment he stepped on a beautiful image of a flower, lighting it up as well as the rifles pointing at him. With a bit of difficulty, Felix narrowly dodged the bullets by rolling forward 3 times until he got outside of the danger area. Though he saw them beforehand, dodging bullets wasn't an evade that any average Joe could pull off. His fans and Madame Zoe, who was low-key paying attention to him while commentating on other players, were left in disbelief at his inhuman reflexes. His fans were just arguing with each other if Felix would activate the trap or not, and if he did would he be able to survive it unscathed. Yet, they didn't think that his reflexes were honed to such a degree that allowed him to pass through the danger zone unharmed. They bought omnipotent vision that allowed them to see all the traps and hidden compartments so they wouldn't miss any player downfall by traps. Based on what they saw so far, at least 15 players got heavily wounded or died by those traps. Not a single one of them managed to leave in one piece like Felix. Before long, their shock turned into amazement and finally to numbness as they continued to watch Felix evade trap by trap while sprinting towards the 3-path cross that Asna mentioned. Not a single one managed to touch Felix's clothes, from bullets, arrows, spears to elemental attacks such as fire snakes and lightning bolts. What's even funnier was the smirking yellow emoji on Felix's dark hoodie that kept that expression no matter how many dangers Felix went through to reach his destination. The spectators and Zoe felt like they were being looked down upon by that emoji over their lack of understanding of how Felix managed to pull that off. Do you think he was using X-ray vision passive to spot traps beforehand? Well, either that or he had future predicting ability. I would rather believe that he could see the future than accept that he had that kind of busted reflexes. You guys are just hating. Why didn't you say anything when other hardcore players dodged those traps as well? Are you really comparing the way they dodged with landlords? Some of them almost King died doing so, while landlord passed through them with his hands in his pockets. Open your dog eyes and look at the replay on the screen. Why is the MC not showing it? The spectator froze as he noticed that another player was being displayed on the large screen and not Felix's highlight that was worth the exposure. He pointed his finger at the screen and yelled, "What the hell? Why are you showing us a player getting devoured by a beast? *CK, we want to see landlord outplay." Incensed and enraged, the other spectators near him booed as well with their thumbs down at Zoe's incompetence to not notice such a fine play. They assumed so, but the truth was that Zoe already saw what Felix did, but still refused to highlight it. Visit novelbin.c.m for updates. She was truly holding a grudge at his earlier disregard. Too bad, she didn't think that the booing would get louder and louder, as news spread quickly between the spectators that they missed an amazing play, but the MC refused to show it to them. Boo! The spectators kept booing, using either gadgets or their hands on their mouths. The majority did so just because the rest were doing it. They didn't even care to see Felix's play. As long as they were following the herd, they were okay with anything. However, those sheep were the ones who brought the biggest trouble to Zoe. She knew that Felix's club would not love the way she was treating him, but she didn't expect others who had their own clubs to join in the fun. After seeing that things were going off the rail, she quickly highlighted Felix's previous play to appease them. She didn't want to fight against the wishes of the crowd for simply a tantrum she was throwing. Otherwise, she could forget about obtaining the promotion she was anticipating after this game. Please excuse me, my dears, for not noticing landlord's highlight. She pouted cutely while bowing slightly as an apology, showing her cleavage on the screen. The enraged spectators gradually contained their voices like a spell was cast on them. How could they not after seeing such a ravishing beauty acting this way to appease them? The female spectators all had jealous expressions clouding their faces after seeing the skillful way Zoe tamed those men. But they understood that the only reason why the men were so easily controllable by her was because she was using her real face and assets unlike them. In the SG, every female MC was required to be a stunning beauty in real life to be able to join the job interview. However, because of this term, the skill requirements were lowered in comparison to male MCs. This was the main reason why high-ranked players were constantly trying to woo her. It was already hard enough to find a real beauty that did not modify her face in the UVR, don't even mention Zoe, who had a glorious career plus the looks. Sigh, I should stop messing around in this game. I can't ruin my ticket to promotion over that bastard. After making her decision, she started commentating on Felix's previous highlight animatedly, not caring anymore about her grudge. However, that's the only thing she did. As the moment she finished, she quickly replaced Felix's highlight with Mastermania ones, like she was shooing away a curse. But the spectators didn't complain much about it since Mastermania was about to fight a three-headed alligator-like beast made out of cracked clay skin and dripping mud from its mouths. Can Mastermania overcome rare Tier 2 Soil Wraith to obtain the blue chest behind it? Zoe shouted. The audience held their breaths in excitement as they watched Mastermania confronting the beast. Mastermania kept pondering on ways to defeat the monstrosity that was glaring at him fiercely. He already spent 3 minutes now evading its attacks and analyzing its strengths and weaknesses. So far, he gained a clear understanding that this beast was one of the immortal types that could not be killed nor physically harmed. However, they had a massive weakness, and that was their core that held their soul. As long as he destroys it, the beast would crumble on itself. Master Mania knew so as well, but he couldn't do much about it, as the core kept coursing through the body of the beast, stopping only when it was about to attack. I need to time my counterattack perfectly with its attack to be able to kill it. He spoke out loud with narrowed eyes, even though he was the only one with the beast. But the spectators were already used to this, as the majority of idols used this method to speak with their fans akin to protagonists in movies. The fans were actually the ones who proposed this idea to their idols way before, and since the idols were slaves to their fans' wishes, they agreed numbly. They went through much worse requests than this before. However, it turned out that the idols who spoke out loud their attacks or couple of dramatic sentences were the ones who toppled up the popularity idol polls. From that moment on, every idol was forced to speak everything he planned to do as dramatically as possible. Just like Master Mania now, who kept taunting the beast out loud while pointing a finger at it. Roar! Finally not able to handle the prick's taunts, Soil Wraith dashed towards him while covering itself with a solid brown skin made of clay. Just as it wanted to open its jaw and spew mud as it did before, Master Mania smacked his palm at the metallic floor while calling out loud, "Shadow spikes." Immediately after, an array of pointy sharp dark spikes sprung up from the beast's shadow, penetrating its clay skin from underneath and behind. Before the beast could even wail, Master Mania slapped his other palm and yelled the same attack again. He knew that the moment he stopped his pressure, the beast would begin his rejuvenation. So, he must keep attacking until a spike luckily lands on the core. Crack! Fortunately for him, that didn't take long. After the third activation, the beast's clay skin shattered completely after the core was taken care of. The body of the beast disintegrated into light particles, leaving behind a number, hovering in the air. 300 GP. Master Mania gave a close-lipped smile at the fat reward he obtained. Although he consumed quite a few points of energy while doing so, it was worth it in his opinion. After all, 400 GP was still waiting for him inside the blue chest that was guarded before by the beast. This would bring the total amount to a whopping 700 GP from one battle. No wonder Felix had to turn this game into a farming competition and not exit-seeking. Master Mania approached the blue chest while massaging his red palms inside his pockets, not daring to show this action to his fans, who were cheering for him with their arms raised and flushed cheeks after his victory. He had to slap his palm on the ground on each activation to appear cool based on his fans' request. If he could choose, he would have simply snapped his fingers like a normal human being. Alas, slaves had no wishes. King Hell, those fans are going to be the death of me. Depressed, he thought while opening the chest as slow as possible for extra effects. Well, that's all for this part, Trekkers. See you all in the next video.